Ethan Richardson's parched lips crack as he collapses onto the red Mojave sand. His 10-year-old frame no longer able to support his weight after 3 days without water. His torn backpack spills its contents across the desert floor, a compass with a cracked face, an empty water bottle, and a handful of granola bars he'd been rationing since getting separated from his father during their search and rescue training hike. The sound comes without warning, a high-pitched whine that cuts through the desert silence. Ethan's head snaps up, his father's training kicking in as he spots the massive shape plummeting from the sky. The spacecraft, easily the size of a school bus, slams into a nearby sand dune with enough force to spray superheated glass in all directions. Ethan scrambles behind a boulder, heart pounding, as twisted chunks of alien metal rain down around him. In the settling dust, something moves within the wreckage. A tall figure emerges, ducking through the twisted hull. Ethan's breath catches in his throat. Standing 8 feet tall, covered in scales and combat armor, is a creature straight out of his worst nightmares. The alien's reptilian head swivels, scanning the landscape with predatory focus. Blood drips from several wounds across its armored frame. This is Gia, though Ethan doesn't know her name. She's a scout for the Saurian Empire, part of an advanced force assessing Earth for conquest. Her species sees all others as prey, maintaining their galactic dominance through superior technology and raw physical power. Now injured and stranded after her ship's stealth systems malfunctioned, she needs sustenance to heal. Ethan watches in terror as her head turns toward his hiding spot. The creature's enhanced sensors have detected his heat signature. He remembers his father's lessons on evading predators in the wild. Stay calm, move quietly, use the terrain to your advantage. But those lessons never covered 8-foot alien hunters with advanced technology. Across the mountain range, David Richardson leads his search team, calling his son's name into the wind. The radio at his belt crackles with updates from other search parties, but none have found signs of Ethan. He has no way of knowing that his son's disappearance has become more than a routine search and rescue operation. It's humanity's first contact with a hostile alien species. The Saurian ship's stealth technology masked its approach from Earth's detection systems. No military forces are coming. No help is on the way. With Gia's long-range communications destroyed in the crash, she faces a simple choice: hunt or die. For Ethan, survival depends on his wits, his father's training, and whatever weapons he can craft from his scattered supplies as the alien predator begins to stalk her prey through the desert heat. Ethan's hands trembled as he gathered his scattered supplies from the desert floor, keeping the boulder between himself and the alien hunter. The scattered wreckage provided irregular shadows to mask his movements as he collected his flashlight, Swiss Army knife, emergency flares, and the half-full canteen that had rolled against a piece of twisted metal. Gia's heavy footsteps crunched through the glass-fused sand, moving in a precise pattern that spoke of military training. Her head rotated in measured increments, scanning the crash site in expanding circles. The armor covering her right leg sparked occasionally, revealing damaged circuitry beneath the plates. Despite the injury, she moved with fluid grace, each step calculated and purposeful. 15 miles away, Dr. Marcus Young frowned at his monitoring equipment. The tagged mountain lion he'd been tracking had gone stationary, but more concerning were the bizarre electromagnetic spikes disrupting his readings. He adjusted the settings, assuming it was interference from the military testing that frequently occurred in the restricted zones. Ethan pressed himself flat against the scorching sand as Gia's head snapped toward his position. He remembered his father's voice from their training sessions. Predators track movement first, heat second. Stay still, stay low. The alien's helmet emitted a soft whine as internal systems attempted to compensate for crash damage. The sound grew louder as she approached his position, then suddenly cut out. Gia removed her helmet, revealing rows of sensing pits along her scaled jaw. Her forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. The desert wind carried microscopic particles to her chemoreceptors, salt from human sweat, synthetic fibers from a backpack, the distinct signature of mammalian skin cells. Ethan crawled backward, using the scattered debris as cover. His elbow brushed something metallic. A rod-shaped device lay half-buried in the sand, its surface marked with alien script. When his fingers wrapped around it, the weapon hummed to life, interface panels lighting up along its length. The sound drew Gia's attention. She spun toward the source, but Ethan had already slipped into a gap between two twisted hull plates. The space was barely wide enough for his small frame, a tactical advantage against the much larger hunter. David Richardson's voice echoed off the canyon walls. "Ethan, can you hear me?" His search team crested a ridge, where they found the mountain lion Dr. Young had been tracking. The animal lay motionless, its flesh bearing strange cauterized wounds. David knelt beside it, running his fingers along the perfectly sealed edges of the injuries. "This isn't right," he muttered, keying his radio. "Base, we've got signs of unauthorized activity in Sector 7. Possible weapons testing. Requesting immediate support." Inside the wreckage, Ethan navigated through a maze of cables and broken panels. The stun rod grew warmer in his grip, its neural interface adapting to his simpler nervous system. Alien symbols on its display shifted and changed, as if the weapon was learning from him. Above the crash site, undetected by Earth's defense systems, multiple objects broke through the atmosphere. The Saurian search parties deployed in standard recovery formation, their ship's stealth systems masking their approach from conventional radar. Gia's tongue flicked out again, catching Ethan's scent. She switched tactics, no longer hunting prey but stalking an intelligent quarry. Her armored fingers traced the boy's trail in the sand-compressed grains, displaced pebbles, microscopic evidence that her damaged but still functional sensors could detect. She activated her backup combat protocols, treating the situation as a tactical engagement rather than a simple hunt. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the Mojave Desert. Dr. Young's monitoring equipment registered another series of electromagnetic anomalies, accompanied by seismic disturbances that made no sense in this geological region. He adjusted his instruments, unaware that he was recording the arrival of humanity's first alien invasion force. The first rays of sunlight pierced the desert haze, casting long shadows across the debris field. Ethan's muscles burned as he tried lifting the Saurian stun rod, its weight forcing him to drag it through the sand. The metal scraped against scattered pieces of hull plating, leaving a clear trail behind him. Gia's sensing pits detected the vibrations from the dragging weapon. She altered her course, moving in a wide arc that would cut off Ethan's path toward the eastern horizon. Her damaged leg servos whined with each step, but her hunter's instincts remained sharp. "Base, do you copy?" David Richardson spoke into his radio, receiving only static in response. He knelt beside a distinctive boot print in the sand, the same pattern as the hiking boots he'd bought Ethan for his 10th birthday. The tracks led toward a column of dust rising in the distance. At his research station, Dr. Young's equipment screamed to life. 4 distinct signatures burned across his monitors, identical to the anomaly he detected earlier. His coffee cup slipped from nerveless fingers as he watched the objects punch through the atmosphere in a precise diamond formation. Commander Kraz's ship touched down 3 miles from Gia's crash site, sand crystallizing beneath its landing thrusters. The veteran officer emerged flanked by 4 hunters carrying sensor arrays. Their scaled hands moved across holographic interfaces, calibrating their equipment to filter out Earth's unfamiliar atmospheric interference. Ethan pressed himself against a twisted bulkhead, his breath coming in short gasps. The remaining water in his canteen sloshed less than a quarter full. His fingers brushed against a recessed panel in the wreckage. The cover slid aside, revealing tubes filled with bluish gel. The substance felt cool against his skin as he smeared it across his arms and face. A chemical reaction produced tendrils of cold vapor that clung to his clothes. His father's voice echoed in his memory. Nature provides tools for those who know where to look. Special Agent Walker studied thermal imaging displays inside his mobile command center. The desert heat created a patchwork of temperature variations, but regular patterns emerged geometric shapes that didn't match natural formations. He dispatched teams equipped with prototype detection systems, their vehicles moving under electromagnetic camouflage. Gia's wounds throbbed as she tracked the boy's trail. The damaged circuits in her armor sparked, each malfunction sending waves of pain through her neural interface. Her mission protocols demanded she report the discovery of an intelligent species, but pride and instinct pushed her forward. The hunt consumed her focus. Dr. Young's vehicle bounced across the desert floor, following the exodus of wildlife. Coyotes and jackrabbits fled east in numbers he'd never recorded. His instruments detected subsonic vibrations emanating from multiple sources, creating a pattern that defied natural explanation. Ethan braced the stun rod against a fallen support beam, testing its weight distribution. The weapon hummed against his palms, its interface adapting to his touch. He oriented himself using the rising sun, remembering countless mornings practicing navigation with his father. Commander Kraz's forces moved with mechanical precision, establishing sensor perimeters that would gradually constrict around the crash site. Their boots crunched across glass-fused sand as they deployed detection nodes in a standard search grid. The desert temperature climbed. Ethan's fingers trembled as he rationed his final sips of water. The cooling gel's vapors provided some relief, but dehydration gnawed at his strength. He plotted his next movement, measuring the distance between debris fragments that could provide cover. David Richardson's team discovered the first Saurian landing site. Strange footprints marked the sand, too large and deep for any known animal. Their radio equipment emitted only white noise, cutting them off from backup. David checked his compass, confirming their position relative to Ethan's tracks. The morning sun climbed higher, and time grew short. Ethan had to move before the heat became unbearable. He gathered his remaining strength, gripping the stun rod with renewed purpose. Somewhere in the desert, his father was searching for him. Somewhere above, more hunters were closing in. The scattered hunters circling his position weren't the only threat now. Through a gap in the wreckage, Ethan spotted metallic glints in the distance, precise, geometric patterns that didn't match the natural desert landscape. His father's training kicked in as he analyzed his surroundings, noting how the local wildlife fled eastward in unusual numbers. Private First Class Michael Torres tracked these same animal movements through his enhanced optics. The jackrabbits and coyotes moved with purposeful speed, their behavior triggering memories from his childhood in the Mojave. He adjusted his position behind a wind-carved boulder, freezing as his scope revealed a towering figure in damaged armor. The creature moved with predatory grace despite its injuries, scanning the ground with methodical precision. Ethan pressed his body against sun-baked rocks, climbing higher to gain a better vantage point. His fingers brushed against something sticky, tubes of bluish gel protruding from the crashed ship's hull. The substance felt cool against his skin, and he hesitated only briefly before smearing it across his exposed flesh. A chemical reaction produced clinging vapors that masked his heat signature. Through his elevated position, he spotted a dust trail approaching from the east. Dr. Young's research vehicle bounced across the desert floor, its path leading directly toward the crash site. Ethan's grip tightened on the salvaged stun rod as he searched for a way to warn the approaching vehicle without revealing his position. Commander Kraz studied the holographic display projected by his survey drones. The scans revealed an unexpected web of primitive technology scattered throughout the region, weather stations, tracking beacons, and monitoring equipment. He gestured to his subordinates, switching to their most sophisticated stealth protocols. Their sensor range dropped dramatically, but their presence became nearly undetectable. Adjust formation pattern delta, he subvocalized through his neural link. Minimal electronic signatures only. The cooling gel crystallized against Ethan's skin as Earth's atmosphere triggered an unexpected reaction. His movements became restricted, but the trade-off granted him complete sensor invisibility. The stun rod in his hands hummed with residual power, and his eyes locked onto a familiar pattern in the scattered debris power, coupling nodes identical to the ones his father used in their rescue beacons. Gia's tongue flicked out, tasting the air as she followed the trail of disturbed sand. The drag marks from the stun rod provided a clear path, but her injured legs sparked and twitched. Unknown organisms invaded her bloodstream through the wound, triggering warning signals throughout her neural interface. Her organic sensory pits detected movement ahead, but the readings grew confused as the atmospheric pressure dropped. James Richardson's team crossed paths with Tors at the edge of a dry wash. The young soldier raised his hand in warning, speaking in hushed tones about the impossible things he'd seen through his scope. "I know these patterns," Tors whispered, indicating the fleeing wildlife. "Something's disrupting their natural behavior. Something big." A series of metallic pylons erupted from the sand around Dr. Young's vehicle, broadcasting waves of electromagnetic interference. His engine died instantly, instruments displaying nonsensical readings as the electronic chaos spread across the desert. The researcher grabbed his basic gear and proceeded on foot, unaware of the scaled figures moving through his peripheral vision. Dark clouds gathered on the horizon as the dust storm approached. Ethan connected salvaged power cells to transmission components, his hands steady despite the crystallizing gel that pulled at his skin. The makeshift distress beacon took shape, but each movement became more difficult as the chemical reaction progressed. Agent Walker's countermeasures activated automatically, flooding the area with competing electronic signals. The overlapping frequencies created cascade failures in both human and alien technology. Gia's damaged systems shut down completely, leaving her with only organic senses as visibility deteriorated. The dust storm's leading edge swept across the desert, reducing the morning sun to a dim orange disk. Tors led James Richardson's team through narrow gaps between rock formations, using his desert experience to stay ahead of the approaching storm. They moved quickly but carefully, following signs that would be invisible to less experienced eyes: displaced pebbles, scraped surfaces, and the subtle indicators of recent passage. The electronic warfare environment intensified as more of Kraz's sensor pylons activated. Ethan's salvaged beacon pulsed with erratic energy, its signal mixing with the chaos of competing frequencies. He faced an impossible choice: maintain his crystallizing camouflage and lose mobility, or break free and risk detection as multiple forces converged on his position. The storm's dark wall approached, and time slipped away like sand through his fingers. The crystallizing gel restricted his movements with increasing severity. Ethan squeezed between two massive sections of the saurian hull, scraping his shoulders against twisted metal as he sought shelter from the approaching storm wall. The narrow space provided cover, but the cooling substance on his skin hardened further, limiting his range of motion. He pressed his back against one wall, using the edge of the stun rod to scrape away patches of the crystallized material. The fragments fell to the sandy ground, catching the diminishing sunlight in an unusual way. Ethan paused, studying the scattered pieces. The crystals bent light around their edges, creating a camouflage effect against the desert floor. He gathered several larger pieces, noting how they seemed to disappear when laid flat against the debris. The ground vibrated beneath his feet. Through gaps in the wreckage, He spotted geometric patterns of blue light cutting through the dust energy barriers rising from the desert floor in a precise grid pattern. The shields hummed with alien power, creating a network of containment zones across the search area. Dr. Young's seismometer spiked as the barriers activated. He adjusted dials and checked readings, cataloging what he assumed to be an unprecedented geological event. His notes detailed the regular frequency of the vibrations, their precise spacing, and their correlation with local wildlife behavior. Jackrabbits and coyotes moved with clear purpose, avoiding specific areas in patterns that defied natural instinct. Private Tours grabbed James Richardson's sleeve, pulling him toward an outcropping of weather-worn rocks. "That's a haboob coming in Category 4 or 5 by the look of it. We need cover now." He pointed to a series of natural formations rising from the desert floor. "Those rocks will give us protection, and there, along your boy's trail." The dust storm's leading edge reduced visibility as Gia limped through the debris field. Her legs sparked and twitched, earth bacteria overwhelming her biological defenses. Built-in medical systems flashed warnings across her neural interface before failing completely. She moved on instinct now, tongue sampling the air as she navigated the wreckage. Sharp crystalline fragments scattered across the ground cut into her injured leg. Each step produced small electrical discharges as the crystals reacted with the storm's static charge. The damaged circuits in her armor sputtered and died, leaving her reliant on organic senses in the deepening haze. Sergeant Cooper hunched over displays inside Agent Walker's command center, analyzing the pattern of alien electronic emissions. "Sir, these shield frequencies, they're operating on principles similar to our containment field prototypes. The power distribution suggests vulnerable nodes at regular intervals." Walker studied the data. "Can we exploit it?" "Yes, sir, but we'll need to get close. This storm is actually helping mask our approach." Commander Kraz's hunters struggled to maintain formation as visibility dropped to meters. Their advanced sensors failed to penetrate the wall of dust, forcing them to rely on basic sight. The storm exceeded their environmental training protocols, disrupting standard search algorithms. The stun rod in Ethan's hands pulsed with gathered energy from the electrically charged air. Each surge created a low-frequency interference pattern that rippled through Saurian communication channels. Commander Kraz tracked the disruption, redirecting his forces toward its source as the storm enveloped them completely. James Richardson crouched near the base of the rock formation, fingers tracing distinct marks in the stone. "Here, see how these rocks are disturbed. The smaller ones are moved aside in a specific pattern." Ethan remembers his training. Tours photographed the tracking signs with his tactical gear, recognizing the potential value of the technique. Through the thickening storm, the rock formation provided a vantage point over the debris field where Ethan had taken shelter, though swirling dust obscured direct lines of sight. The haboob's full force struck. Visibility vanished in a brown wall of dust and static. Ethan pressed deeper into his hiding space as Gia entered the same debris field from the opposite direction, her natural hunting instincts heightened by the loss of technology. The crystalline fragments continued to spark and interfere with her damaged systems as she moved closer to his position. Above them, James Richardson and Tours secured themselves against the storm's fury, unaware of how close they were to their objective. Commander Kraz's energy barriers hummed through the chaos, creating a shrinking perimeter of containment zones. The storm stripped away his forces' technological advantages, leaving them to face unfamiliar terrain in conditions that exceeded their combat parameters. Through it all, the stun rod's energy pulse grew stronger, drawing hunters toward its location as the desert descended into brown darkness. Fragments of crystallized gel crackled beneath Ethan's feet as he shifted position in the narrow space between debris sections. The material he'd scraped off earlier scattered across the ground in a glittering array, nearly invisible against the sand, except for occasional catches of the storm-dimmed light. A sharp hiss of pain echoed through the debris field, followed by the sound of something heavy stumbling. Through gaps in the wreckage, Ethan spotted drops of luminescent green fluid spattering the ground. The alien blood created eerie patterns in the dust-filled air as Gia navigated the hazardous terrain. Her movements grew increasingly erratic as she encountered more crystalline fragments, each step leaving traces of bioluminescent fluid in her wake. Above the debris field, Major Sarah Hawks maintained a holding pattern in her specialized rescue helicopter. The aircraft's hardened systems fought against the electronic interference, instruments flickering but holding steady. She tracked energy fluctuations through specialized sensors, mapping the failing shield network below. "Command, this is Hawkeye 1, she transmitted, detecting multiple shield failures in grid sectors 7 through 12. Pattern suggests systematic degradation. Sergeant Cooper's voice crackled through the static. "Confirmed, Major." The stun rod's electromagnetic signature is matching Earth's magnetic field resonance. Our countermeasures are creating exploitable gaps in their containment field. The storm's intensity peaked, visibility dropping to zero at ground level. James Richardson pressed against the rock face as Tors photographed the disturbed crystals before them. The fragments formed a distinct pattern one James recognized from countless training sessions with his son. "Here," James pointed to a specific arrangement. "Ethan always moves like this when he's trying to stay hidden tight to cover minimal disturbance, but leaving subtle markers for friendly forces to track." Tors nodded, comparing the pattern to his tactical display. These formations match standard containment protocols. Their search teams are moving in predictable sweeps, despite the storm interference. Below them, Commander Kraz's biosensor array revealed alarming data. Earth bacteria colonized exposed saurian technology at an accelerating rate, compromising critical systems. The microbial invasion spread through their equipment, causing cascading failures in their containment grid. Dr. Young followed his seismometer readings toward a gap in the shield network. His approach triggered a catastrophic failure in the nearest generator. Energy discharged into the storm, temporarily clearing the dust in a spherical zone. The brief window of visibility revealed 3 saurian soldiers, their armor showing signs of bacterial degradation. The stun rod in Ethan's hands pulsed with gathered energy, attracting nearby fragments of crystallized gel. The pieces aligned themselves into geometric patterns that mimicked saurian shield technology. Gia paused at the edge of this impromptu defense system, her hunting instincts confused by the familiar energy signatures deployed in unfamiliar patterns. Wind stress and bacterial damage caused a section of hull plating above Ethan to shift. The movement exposed previously hidden compartments containing saurian emergency equipment. Beacons activated automatically, adding their signals to the electromagnetic chaos. The electronic warfare environment grew more complex as human and alien frequencies competed for dominance. Ethan pressed deeper into his hiding space as the hull section groaned overhead. The stun rod's energy field expanded, creating a protective bubble that deflected some of the storm's fury. Through the swirling dust, he tracked Gia's bioluminescent blood trail as it drew the attention of a nearby saurian search team. The aliens moved with practiced efficiency despite their compromised equipment, following what they assumed was evidence of an injured comrade. Their approach intersected with one of Agent Walker's countermeasure points, creating a temporary blind spot in their sensor coverage. Tors tracked their movement through his tactical scope, noting how the bacterial infection affected their armor's joint servos. "Mr. Richardson, they're losing mobility. Their equipment wasn't designed for Earth's microbial environment." James studied the terrain below through breaks in the storm. We need to move now, while their systems are compromised. Ethan's defense pattern won't hold forever. The stun rod's pulse grew stronger, resonating with the planet's magnetic field. Shield generators failed in sequence around the containment zone as Sergeant Cooper's countermeasures exploited the frequency match. Major Hawks tracked these failures from above, coordinating with ground teams as gaps in the alien defense grid widened. Gia's tongue flicked out, testing the air currents around Ethan's position. The crystalline fragments disrupted her sensory input, creating false readings that overlapped with the stun rod's expanding energy field. She moved cautiously through the debris field, her injured leg leaving a trail of luminescent droplets that marked her passage through the storm-swept terrain. A gust of wind scattered the luminescent droplets, spreading Gia's blood trail across the crystallized fragments. The interaction created an eerie green glow that pulsed in sync with the storm's static charge. Above, Major Hawks adjusted her helicopter's position, her sensor displays flickering with new data. "Command, I'm picking up thermal anomalies throughout the containment zone," Hawks transmitted. "The crystallized material is reacting with their shield technology, mapping the pattern now." The thermal imaging revealed a network of cooler pathways through the storm, where the alien shields intersected with the scattered gel fragments. Agent Walker's tactical display updated with the new data, showing safe corridors through the containment field. Inside his shelter, Ethan noticed the stun rod's energy field pulling dust particles into a rotating sphere around him. The effect cleared a bubble of visibility extending several meters in all directions. Through this window of clarity, he observed larger formations of crystal beginning to form as static electricity drew the fragments together. Dr. Young stumbled through the brown haze, following his equipment's readouts. The display showed organized movement patterns reminiscent of wolf pack hunting behaviors. He tracked these signatures through the storm until walking directly into Ethan's clear air pocket. "Remarkable," Dr. Young whispered, noting how the dust swirled around them. "The electromagnetic field is creating a localized area of get down." Ethan pulled him behind a section of debris as a Saurian patrol passed nearby. Their armor sparked with electrical discharges, components visibly deteriorating under bacterial assault. Commander Kraz's biosensors flashed urgent warnings. Earth bacteria consumed critical components of their shield generators, breaking down molecular structures never before encountered by these microscopic invaders. "Deactivate all non-essential systems," he ordered. "Priority to life support and communications only." The sound of malfunctioning equipment echoed through the debris field as Saurian troops complied. Their sensor arrays powered down, forcing them to maintain physical contact to preserve their search formation. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Powell arrived at the perimeter, carrying specialized equipment cases. "Agent Walker, the EMP generators are ready for deployment. We need to position them at these coordinates." He indicated points on the tactical display where the thermal anomalies intersected. The first generator activated with a low hum. Nearby, a Saurian shield emitter crackled and failed as bacteria accelerated their consumption of its components. The effect cascaded through adjacent systems, creating new gaps in the containment field. James Richardson tracked these failures from his elevated position. "There's another clear pocket forming at 2 o'clock. He pointed as Torres photographed Gia's luminescent trail through a break in the dust. Gia pressed against a crystalline formation, her vision blurring. The stun rod's electromagnetic pulse registered as familiar combat signals in her fever-rattled mind. She moved toward the source in erratic patterns, confusing the Saurian search teams attempting to track her. Sergeant Cooper's analysis station lit up with new data. "Sir, the electromagnetic interference is creating a unique signature. These frequencies only affect their technology hours remains functional if we can distribute more generators." Prioritize placement around the debris field, Walker ordered. Focus on cutting off their retreat paths. Commander Kraz received an urgent transmission from his ship. The bacterial infection had reached core systems, threatening to spread through the entire orbital fleet. He studied the containment field data, calculating mission parameters against the risk of losing his command. The crystallized fragments continued their transformation, growing into translucent barriers that forced both hunters and hunted into narrowing corridors. Ethan observed these changes through his sphere of clear air, noting how the structures redirected movement through the debris field. A section of crystal formation shattered as Gia stumbled through it, her damaged leg leaving tracks of glowing fluid across its surface. The fragments realigned behind her, sealing off the path as Saurian troops approached from multiple directions. Through the storm's static, Major Hawks transmitted updated thermal maps to ground teams. The pattern of safe passages shifted constantly as more shield generators failed, creating a dynamic maze of opportunities and dead ends beneath the dust-filled sky. Hawk's thermal imaging revealed a sudden surge of activity as Commander Kraz's ship initiated emergency launch procedures. The vessel's hull emitted irregular heat patterns, sections cooling rapidly as bacterial contamination consumed its bioorganic components. Multiple contacts breaking formation, Hawks transmitted. Saurian ground forces dispersing in organized withdrawal patterns. Ethan watched the crystalline structures around him grow, gel fragments arranging themselves into geometric patterns that pulsed with electromagnetic energy. Dr. Young crouched beside him, monitoring readings on his behavioral tracking equipment. "Fascinating," Dr. Young whispered, adjusting sensors. "They're moving like pack predators losing cohesion." Breaking into smaller units, creating false trails, a harsh mechanical grinding interrupted him as Gia stumbled through the dome's perimeter. Her armor sparked and seized, joints locking mid-stride. She collapsed 3 meters from their position, bioluminescent fluid leaking from compromised seals. Her targeting systems flickered and died, crystalline formations growing across her disabled weapons. Ethan gripped the stun rod tighter, its energy field expanding to incorporate the new crystals forming around them. Through the dome's clear air, he observed Gia's labored breathing, her armor's life support systems failing under bacterial assault. Tors tracked the scene through his scope. Target down, but still alive. Multiple hostiles withdrawing northeast, leaving deliberate gaps in coverage. "They're baiting us," James responded, studying the pattern, "creating corridors to draw us out while they fall back." Agent Walker's voice crackled through their comms. "Powell's generators are in position, initiating electromagnetic pulse sequence." The first pulse rippled through the debris field. Remaining Saurian shield generators overloaded in rapid succession, sparking and dissolving as bacteria accelerated their consumption of alien technology. Crystal formations conducted the energy outward, creating a web of electromagnetic interference that expanded through the thinning storm. Above, Commander Kraz's ship struggled to maintain altitude. Sections of hull plating separated and fell, breaking apart as they tumbled toward the debris field. The impacts scattered more crystallized gel across the ground, adding to the growing lattice of refractive barriers. "Incoming debris," Hawks warned. Multiple impacts detected across sectors 3 through 8. Dr. Young's equipment registered new movement patterns. "They're abandoning their search protocols. Emergency extraction procedures taking priority." Ethan observed Gia through the dome's clear air. Her armor's joint servos twitched sporadically, attempts at movement growing weaker. The bacterial infection had reached her cybernetic systems, rendering her advanced technology useless. "Help." "Please," Gia managed through failing translation circuits. Her translator glitched, switching between languages before settling on broken English. James and Tors descended carefully, using the crystal formations as cover. They reached the edge of Ethan's dome as another pulse from Powell's generators triggered new failures in Saurian equipment. The electromagnetic web intensified, conducting energy through the lattice of crystalline barriers. Significant atmospheric changes, Cooper reported through the command channel. Storm intensity decreasing by 30%. Visual confirmation possible in multiple sectors. The thinning dust revealed the full extent of bacterial damage to Saurian technology. Abandoned equipment dissolved into inert components, crystal formations growing through gaps in deteriorating alien materials. Commander Kraz's ship vanished into the clouds, trailing pieces of decomposing hull plating. Sergeant Cooper's analysis station processed new data. Sir, bacterial contamination has compromised all Saurian technology in the affected zone. Their systems are completely vulnerable to the combination of Earth bacteria and electromagnetic interference. Torres secured the perimeter while James moved toward Ethan's position. Dr. Young's equipment continued tracking the retreating Saurian forces, their movements growing increasingly erratic as more systems failed. The crystal network is spreading, Dr. Young observed, noting how the formations conducted energy from Ethan's stun rod, creating a feedback loop that amplifies the electromagnetic disruption. Agent Walker's team approached from multiple angles, using gaps in the dissolving Saurian defense grid. They carried Powell's remaining pulse generators, positioning them to maintain pressure on any alien technology in the area. Gia's armor seized completely, locking her in place as bacterial infection consumed her remaining functional systems. The choice between escape and assistance weighed on Ethan as he watched her struggle for breath through failing life support. Support system failing. Ethan watched her chest rise and fall with increasing difficulty through gaps in her deteriorating armor. His father's words echoed in his mind from countless survival training sessions. In the field, everyone's human. Help first, ask questions later. He reached for the crystallized gel coating his clothes, scraping off portions that hadn't fully bonded. The material felt cool against his skin as he packed it around exposed sections of Gia's armor where her fever radiated strongest. Doctor. Young rummaged through his equipment case. I have something that might help. He retrieved a metal container marked with medical symbols. Broad-spectrum antibiotics. We use them for injured wildlife studies. Above them, Commander Kraz's ship tore through the thinning dust clouds. Chunks of bioorganic hull plating rained down, spreading spores across the debris field as they decomposed. The crystalline formations pulsed brighter where the spores landed, conducting waves of electromagnetic energy that expanded outward in concentric rings. Sir, Torres called from his observation position, they're creating a gap to the east. Clear line of sight toward Clayton's settlement. He adjusted his scope, tracking movement patterns through the dissipating storm. They're pulling back in organized waves, leaving the corridor open. Major Hawk's voice crackled through their comms, confirming Tor's assessment. I have visual on multiple withdrawal routes, all Saurian forces converging north-northeast, away from the settlement. Dr. Young administered the antibiotics through a gap in Gia's armor. The effect was immediate and unexpected wherever the medication spread. Her cybernetic components began separating from organic tissue. The process revealed intricate networks of biomechanical integration throughout her system. Fascinating, Dr. Young muttered, monitoring the reaction. Their entire technological advantage appears to rely on biological augmentation. New voices joined their comm channel as additional forces approached their position. This is Master Sergeant Harrison, Air Force Combat Control. We detected your electromagnetic signature from our training zone, moving to support with full team. Agent Walker acknowledged while directing Powell's team to establish their perimeter. The prototype pulse generators hummed to life in sequence, creating overlapping fields of disruption that merged with the natural electromagnetic disturbance spreading from the decomposing Saurian technology. Cooper here, reading complete technological shutdown in all sectors containing bacterial contamination. Effect radius expanding at approximately 12 meters per minute. The desert floor transformed where Saurian equipment dissolved. Patches of green vegetation sprouted through the crystalline lattice, marking trails of alien retreat with lines of fresh growth. Master Sergeant Harrison's team emerged from the thinning haze, moving with practiced efficiency to secure observation points around the perimeter. These crystal formations, Harrison observed, studying the geometric patterns. They're creating natural channeling barriers, standard containment configuration, just like we train for. James Richardson coordinated with Hawks while Harrison's team integrated into their defensive positions. Major, we need an extraction route that avoids those hull fragments. Bacterial contamination is spreading faster than predicted. Commander Kraz's ship ascended through the upper atmosphere, leaving a trail of dissolving components that scattered across the desert. The vessel's structural integrity failed catastrophically at 30,000 feet, forcing its emergency jump to orbit. Cooper's monitors registered the expanding contamination zone as pieces of Saurian technology continued to rain down. Ethan watched Gia's breathing stabilize as the antibiotics took effect. The crystallized gel he'd packed around her armor conducted pulses of electromagnetic energy that interfered with her remaining active systems, preventing them from rejecting the treatment. Her translator sputtered and stabilized. The connection, breaking down, she managed, all connections failing. Harrison moved to Ethan's position, assessing the situation. We need to move before that contamination zone reaches us. My team can provide cover while we transport her east. The crystal network grew more complex around them, forming corridors that aligned with Harrison's tactical displays. Through gaps in the formation, they observed Saurian troops struggling with total technological failure as their retreating forces reached the edge of the contamination zone. Powell's generators pulsed in synchronized waves, reinforcing the natural electromagnetic barrier, expanding through the debris field. The combination created a steadily growing dead zone for alien technology that forced the remaining Saurian forces to abandon their equipment as they withdrew. Above, Commander Kraz's fleet detected the spreading contamination and began emergency maneuvers to achieve higher orbit. Their sensors registered bacterial traces reaching through the atmosphere, carried by dissolving fragments of their own technology. Each passing minute forced them farther from Earth's surface as the invisible threat rose to meet them. Harrison's team began establishing an extraction corridor through the crystal maze, while Dr. Young monitored Gia's vital signs. The antibiotics continued breaking down her cybernetic components, revealing more about the Saurians' biological dependence on their technology. Each dissolved connection exposed new vulnerabilities in their seemingly advanced systems. The whine of helicopter rotors pierced the electromagnetic haze as Harrison's team secured the perimeter. Fresh vegetation sprouted in geometric patterns through the crystalline formations, marking safe paths through the contaminated zones. Dr. Young monitored Gia's vital signs on his portable display as her fever dropped steadily. Temperature normalizing, he announced, adjusting the antibiotic drip. But these cybernetic components are separating faster than anticipated. The helicopter touched down 50 meters east, kicking up dust that sparkled with traces of crystallized gel. Lieutenant Colonel Victor Kane emerged, followed by a team wearing specialized collection gear. He strode toward their position, ignoring the warnings posted by Harrison's NBC markers. This site is now under jurisdiction of Project Archimedes, Kane announced, producing documentation on a hardened tablet. All alien artifacts are to be collected and transferred to our secure facility immediately. James reached Ethan's position as Kane's team began gathering pieces of dissolving saurian equipment. "We need to move," he said quietly, gripping his son's shoulder. "Something's not right with those energy readings." Private Torres confirmed through his scope. "Sir, the larger debris fragments are showing increasing thermal signatures. Pattern matches unstable reactor behavior." Chief Warrant Officer Powell's monitoring equipment blared sudden warnings. "Multiple energy spikes detected. The bacterial decomposition is accelerating power cell degradation." The crystalline network pulsed with increasing intensity, conducting visible arcs of energy between larger pieces of saurian technology. Kane's collection teams dropped their samples as electrical discharges drove them back from the debris field. "I've got 3 bogies entering atmosphere," Hawks reported through the command channel. "Saurian rescue ships, showing immediate hull deterioration from bacterial exposure." A swarm of desert insects converged on the debris field, drawn by strange spores releasing from the decomposing alien technology. Dr. Young's equipment tracked the biological response spreading outward from ground zero. "The translation matrix is failing," Gia spoke through Dr. Young's jury-rigged device. "You must understand the fleet carries the purifier. If bacterial contamination reaches the main ships, automated protocols will trigger planetary sterilization." A massive desert camouflage vehicle approached from the west, bearing markings of a classified military installation. Major General Marcus Stone emerged, directing a team operating a sealed containment unit. "That's experimental bioweapons gear," Harrison muttered, recognizing the specialized equipment. "They've been expecting something like this." The crystalline formations grew more unstable as gravitational distortions rippled through the debris field. Powell's sensors registered critical readings from multiple degrading power sources. "We're losing containment," Stone announced, studying data feeds from his team's equipment. "But these crystal structures, they're channeling the energy discharge patterns. If we can maintain the electromagnetic field from that stun rod, we might be able to create a stable containment zone." Agent Walker assessed the competing priorities. "We need coordinated evacuation now." Harrison, establish hard boundaries for the quarantine zone. Powell, get those pulse generators to minimum safe distance. Dr. Young, prep Gia for immediate transport. Kane's team retreated as another energy surge lit up the crystal network. "This is valuable evidence of first contact," he protested. "We can't just abandon it." "With respect, Colonel," Stone responded, "we're looking at potential NBC contamination across 3 states if we don't contain this now. Your artifacts won't mean much if that bacterial infection spreads beyond our control." The destabilizing alien technology created visible distortions in the air as gravitational forces warped the crystal structures. Ethan's stun rod maintained its protective field, the only stable point in the growing chaos. He watched the energy patterns pulse through the crystalline network, knowing someone would have to remain behind to maintain the containment field. Through gaps in the forming containment zone, the 3 saurian rescue ships descended through deteriorating hulls, spreading bacterial contamination in their wake. Time was running out as multiple threats converged on their position. Stone's containment team scrambled into position as energy readings spiked across their monitoring equipment. The destabilizing power cores pulsed with increasing intensity, sending visible waves of electromagnetic disturbance through the crystalline formations. "Get those dampeners online." Stone directed his technicians as they deployed experimental equipment around the perimeter. The units hummed to life, projecting invisible fields that partially contained the energy fluctuations, though readouts showed concerning instability in their effectiveness. A massive excavator rolled into view, followed by several modified engineering vehicles. Colonel Richard Drake jumped down from the lead vehicle, already issuing orders to his Army Corps of Engineers team. "We need containment trenches around those hotspots," Drake called out, pointing to clusters of debris showing the highest energy signatures. His teams moved with practiced efficiency, their equipment specially adapted for hazardous materials handling. As the excavators bit into the desert floor, they revealed an unexpected development. The crystalline gel had spread underground, forming intricate networks of glowing channels. "Sir," one of Drake's operators reported, "these crystal structures are actually helping direct the energy flow. We might be able to use them to our advantage." Kane pushed past the safety barriers, gesturing to his collection team. "Those weapon components are still intact. Move in and secure them before the bacterial contamination triggered an immediate reaction." The weapons cache exploded in a shower of dissolving bioorganic material, sending 3 of Kane's men sprawling backward with severe chemical burns. "Harrison, get them out." Walker seized control of the situation. "Everyone else, fall back to safe distance. I'm assuming command under Emergency Protocol 7. Harrison's team executed a precision extraction, navigating the increasingly treacherous terrain to reach the injured men. The crystalline formations pulsed in sync with Ethan's stun rod, creating visible corridors of stable energy that guided their retreat. Dr. Young continued monitoring Gia's readings as her cybernetic systems separated from organic tissue. "These bacteria, they're not just attacking the technology. They're specifically targeting the integration points between biological and mechanical components." Private Torres tracked the expanding pattern of vegetation through his scope. "The plants are consuming contaminated material, sir, creating natural barriers around the hot zones." James coordinated with Hawks, mapping safe passages through the crystal maze for emergency vehicles. The helicopter's downdraft generated rippling waves of electromagnetic energy through the formations, illuminating viable extraction routes. A thunderous impact shook the ground as Commander Kraz's command ship crashed 30 miles north. Stone immediately divided his containment teams, dispatching units to prevent contamination spread from the new crash site. "Incoming!" Powell shouted as Saurian collection drones descended through the dust clouds. The machines sparked and jerked erratically, their partially organic components already failing from bacterial exposure. Powell's pulse generators took them down in rapid succession, though each disabled unit added its power core to the growing chain reaction threat. The crystalline network expanded visibly now, forming structures that resembled natural geological formations, but behaved unlike anything in Earth's geological record. Ethan's stun rod interfaced with the crystal matrices in increasingly complex patterns, its neural link adapting to incorporate new frequencies. Drake's team discovered their initial containment barriers were actually amplifying the energy fluctuations. "Switch to local materials," he ordered, redirecting his equipment to gather desert sand and rock. "The natural elements are dampening the reactions." Time pressed against them as multiple crises demanded immediate attention. The energy readings continued climbing despite their containment efforts. More Saurian drones fell from the sky, their crashes spreading contamination wider. Through it all, the crystal formations grew more complex, creating a network that both helped and hindered their efforts to prevent catastrophe. Agent Walker took position at the mobile command center, coordinating the competing response teams while maintaining security against unauthorized access to the alien technology. Above them, the remaining Saurian ships held position just beyond the atmosphere, their hulls showing signs of bacterial degradation even at that distance. Ethan's stun rod pulsed with increasing power as it integrated further with the crystal network, becoming the focal point of their containment efforts. The question wasn't if they could prevent disaster, but whether they could do it before the failing alien technology reached critical mass. A flash of insight struck Dr. Howard Reynolds as he rushed from his hastily parked government vehicle portable radiation scanner, already beeping in his hands. The crystal formations weren't just conducting energy, they were storing it. "Look at these readings," Reynolds called out, holding his scanner toward the nearest crystal cluster. "The formations are acting as natural capacitors. They're absorbing and containing the energy release from the degrading technology." Drake's engineering team paused their excavation work as Reynolds approached, his scanner painting the crystal structures in falsicolor displays that revealed complex energy flows throughout the formation network. "The crystals are creating stable channels," Reynolds explained, tracking a surge of energy as it moved through the geological matrix. "If we can map these pathways, we might be able to direct the worst of the discharge away from populated areas." A new convoy of vehicles approached from the east, their modified hazmat suits visible through reinforced windows. Captain Marcus Wells stepped out, immediately presenting a folder of documents to Agent Walker. "These are direct orders from command," Wells stated. "My team is tasked with recovering specific pieces of Saurian technology, classified Priority Alpha." Walker examined the papers with narrowed eyes. "Your orders don't supersede NBC containment protocols, Captain. This is still my operation." The argument halted as Ethan's stun rod pulsed with increasing intensity. The neural interface had begun incorporating new frequency patterns, matching the resonance of the crystal structures surrounding them. "The weapon's adaptive properties are remarkable," Dr. Young observed, monitoring both Gia's readings and the stun rod's output. "It's recognizing Ethan's nervous system as a valid control input, something the Saurians never expected from human biology." Private Torres called out from his observation position. "Sir, I've identified several cave entrances. The crystal formations are extending into natural caverns beneath us." Harrison's team moved quickly to deploy monitoring equipment around the cave system. Energy discharges from degrading alien technology traced visible paths through the crystal matrices, following the natural contours of the underground passages. "The caves could provide natural containment," Reynolds suggested, studying his scanner readings. "The surrounding rock already shows signs of energy absorption and redistribution." Gia stirred on her medical cot, her voice stronger as Dr. Young adjusted her support systems. "The bacterial infection targets the integration points between organic and technological components. It's not just destroying our technology, it's severing the connection between biological and mechanical systems that our entire civilization depends on." Hawks coordinated with Drake's engineering team through the command channel, directing heavy equipment to clear landing zones away from the expanding crystal formations. Modified construction vehicles carved paths through the desert terrain as experimental energy-dampening equipment arrived via helicopter. "The radiation signatures are changing," Reynolds announced, adjusting his scanning equipment. "The bacterial consumption of their power cores is producing unknown forms of energy." The crystal structures responded to the new radiation, some sections growing rapidly while others dissolved into fine powder. James Richardson studied the shifting terrain, identifying stable routes through the increasingly complex maze of formations. "We need to establish emergency evacuation corridors," James said, marking safe paths on the tactical display. "The crystal growth patterns follow predictable geometric progressions. We can use that to maintain access routes." At the northern crash site, Stone's containment team reported unexpected developments. Desert plants had begun growing at accelerated rates around the contaminated areas, their root systems adapting to process the alien materials. "The local vegetation is neutralizing contaminated components," Stone reported through the command channel. We're seeing similar patterns across all affected zones. Wells' recovery team advanced toward a cluster of partially dissolved saurian devices, their experimental hazmat suits glowing with protective fields. Walker's security personnel moved to intercept them, creating a tense standoff amid the poolsing crystal formations. Reynolds' scanner emitted a series of urgent alerts as energy levels spiked throughout the crystal network. The bacterial consumption of alien technology had reached a critical phase, sending waves of unknown radiation through the growing matrix of natural containment structures. Above them, the remaining saurian ships maintained their holding pattern, their hulls visibly deteriorating even at orbital altitude. "The crystal network is our best chance for containment," Reynolds announced, watching energy patterns flow through his scanner display. "But we need to understand these radiation effects before the natural structures degrade completely." Reynolds adjusted his scanner's sensitivity as new data streams illuminated the display. "Wait, look at this pattern." He pointed to a rhythmic pulse emanating from Ethan's stun rod. The weapon's output matches the crystal's natural resonance frequency. The crystalline structures nearest to Ethan stabilized, their chaotic growth settling into organized geometric patterns. Colonel Drake stepped closer, studying the effect. "Move those dampening units to amplify that signal," Drake ordered his engineering team. "Focus on establishing a stable perimeter using the stun rod's frequency as a baseline." A convoy of black vehicles approached through the shimmering heat waves. Dr. Marcus Blackwood emerged from the lead vehicle, his private security detail fanning out with experimental containment units. "Those crystal formations are vital research assets," Blackwood announced, presenting a thick folder of documentation to Walker. "My team is authorized to collect and preserve any viable samples." Walker scanned the papers with growing concern. "Your authority ends where it threatens containment protocols. We've already lost 3 men to unauthorized collection attempts." The ground trembled as Stone's team reported from the northern crash site. "The vegetation is exhibiting unprecedented growth rates," Stone transmitted. "These plants aren't just consuming contaminated material, they're creating natural containment barriers." Desert flora twisted upward through the crystalline matrices, forming living walls that absorbed excess energy. Stone requested immediate botanical support through the command channel. "Sir." Private tours called from his observation post. "The cave network extends for miles. The crystal formations are following natural water channels underground." Colonel Drake's ground-penetrating radar revealed an intricate network of solution caves beneath the debris field. The crystalline structures had infiltrated these natural passages, creating a geometric pattern that channeled energy deep into the bedrock. Captain Wells' team advanced toward a partially intact saurian power core, their specialized retrieval equipment humming. "Beginning extraction sequence," Wells reported. "Stop!" Reynolds shouted as his scanner screamed warnings. "The power core is—" A brilliant flash erupted as the extraction process triggered a cascade reaction through the crystal network. James Richardson seized control of the evacuation. "Everyone moved to Sector 7. Richardson directed, guiding personnel through pre-mapped safe zones. "Follow the marked paths exactly, the terrain's unstable everywhere else." Technical Sergeant Cooper rushed forward with an array of electromagnetic sensors. "These readings don't make sense," he muttered, adjusting his equipment. "The crystals aren't just containing the energy, they're converting it." "Converting it to what?" Drake asked. "Into forms compatible with Earth's natural electromagnetic field," Cooper explained. "Look, these zones here are completely stable. Both our tech and organic systems function normally inside them." Dr. Young monitored Gia's recovery nearby. The alien's biological systems had begun producing Earth-compatible antibodies, her remaining organic components adapting to function without cybernetic support. "The bacterial infection may have saved her life," Young noted. By forcing her systems to operate independently of the alien tech, it's allowing natural biological processes to reassert themselves. Above them, Major Hawk's network of modified weather balloons tracked radiation patterns across the affected zone. The data showed increasing conversion rates where plant life integrated with the crystal structures. Harrison's team worked rapidly to establish mineral barriers around the perimeter, using local materials that inhibited crystal growth while allowing beneficial bacterial action to continue. The spread follows the mineral content of the soil, Harrison reported, marking affected zones on the tactical display. We can predict where it's going to expand next. The stun rod pulsed with increasing strength as Ethan moved through the containment zone, each activation stabilizing nearby crystal formations. The weapon's neural interface adapted to the new energy patterns, creating expanding zones of stability in its wake. Cooper's instruments tracked the energy conversion process through the growing crystal network, recording the gradual transformation of alien power signatures into Earth-normal electromagnetic frequencies. Above them, the orbiting Saurian ships continued their slow deterioration, casting shadows across the desert's evolving landscape. A low-frequency hum vibrated through the ground as the crystal formations pulsed with renewed energy. Reynolds tracked the expanding network on his scanner, noting geometric patterns emerging in the growth structure. The formations are incorporating mineral content from the surrounding soil, Reynolds announced, adjusting his display settings. The crystallization process is accelerating. A dust cloud approached from the south, marking the arrival of a military convoy. Brigadier General Thomas Hawthorne emerged from the lead vehicle, his desert warfare unit's insignia visible on his uniform. "We've got specialized ground-penetrating radar systems," Hawthorne said, directing his technicians to unload equipment, designed for detecting underground installations. Should give us a better picture of what's happening beneath the surface. The radar displays revealed an intricate honeycomb structure extending deep underground. Crystal formations had infiltrated natural cave systems, creating stable channels that contained and distributed energy from the degrading Saurian technology. Dr. Blackwood's collection team moved toward a cluster of failing alien devices, their containment units humming. "Beginning sample extraction," one technician announced. "Wait," Walker called out, but the warning came too late. The containment unit's seals failed. 3 team members stumbled backward, their personal electronics sparking and shutting down. Dr. Young rushed forward with diagnostic equipment. "Their electromagnetic signatures are altered," Young reported, scanning the affected personnel. "The bacteria has modified their bioelectric fields." At the northern crash site, Major General Stone redirected his resources as plant life surged through the contaminated zones. Desert vegetation twisted upward, incorporating crystal structures into root systems that processed and neutralized alien materials. "The plants are our best containment option," Stone transmitted, requesting immediate botanical support to direct and sustain growth patterns. Technical Sergeant Cooper's monitoring equipment picked up the transformation. "The crystals are converting energy into forms that stimulate plant growth," he explained, tracking energy flows through his displays. "It's creating a sustainable cycle." Private tours moved along the cave system perimeter, marking intersections with underground water sources. "The aquifers are showing trace crystal content," he reported through the command channel. But the formations are filtering out contamination. Water testing remains clear. James Richardson coordinated with Harrison's team, establishing safe transit corridors through the expanding crystal maze. "These geometric patterns create stable zones," Richardson explained, marking pathways on the tactical display. "Both our technology and organic systems function normally inside them." Ethan's stun rod flickered, its power cell indicator dropping. Reynolds scanned the weapon, noting new energy patterns. The neural interface has adapted, Reynolds said. It's drawing power directly from the crystal network, creating a stabilizing feedback loop. Captain Wells' security team reported unusual animal behavior at the perimeter. Desert wildlife avoided dense crystal concentrations, but gathered in areas where plant growth had processed alien contamination. Near the medical station, Dr. Young monitored Gia's recovery. Her organic systems continued adapting to function without cybernetic support, the bacterial infection evolving into a symbiotic relationship. Her biology is processing Earth microorganisms successfully, Young noted, reviewing diagnostic data. The bacterial mutation may provide insights into safely deactivating other Saurian technology. Hawthorne's radar systems mapped deeper crystal structures as the formations continued their geometric expansion. The underground network grew more complex, channeling and converting energy releases from the failing alien technology above. Cooper's instruments tracked the transformation of Saurian power signatures into Earth-compatible frequencies. The process accelerated in areas where crystal formations intersected with expanding root systems, creating zones of increasing stability. The crystalline interaction is spreading faster than our artificial containment measures, Stone transmitted from the northern site. Recommend focusing resources on supporting natural processing systems. Richardson marked new safe zones on the tactical display as Harrison's team established monitoring stations throughout the crystal maze. The geometric patterns provided predictable pathways through the otherwise chaotic growth. Keep all personnel on marked routes, Richardson instructed through the command channel. Crystal density is too high for safe transit outside established corridors. Above them, the orbiting Saurian vessels continued their slow deterioration, their hulls reflecting sunlight through the crystalline haze that rose from the desert floor. The natural containment system expanded beneath them, Earth's biosphere adapting to process and neutralize the alien presence. Ethan moved through a newly stabilized zone, his stun rod pulsing in rhythm with the surrounding crystal matrix. The weapon's neural interface maintained its connection to the network, helping to direct and stabilize the ongoing transformation of alien energy into Earth-compatible forms. Dr. Reynolds adjusted his scanning equipment as new patterns emerged in the crystal growth. The formations continued their expansion through the desert soil, incorporating minerals and creating increasingly complex geometric structures that channeled and contained the failing alien technology's energy releases. Dr. Reynolds adjusted his scanning displays as new data streamed across the screen. The crystal formation's energy signatures shifted, geometric patterns emerging with increasing complexity. The network's reaching critical mass, Reynolds announced, highlighting a three-dimensional model. These structures are naturally dampening harmful emissions. Colonel Drake studied the data, noting how the crystalline geometries created predictable safe zones. We can establish permanent containment without artificial barriers. The formations are doing the work for us. A CDC mobile laboratory unit rolled into the command area, its specialized equipment humming to life. Chief Medical Officer Benjamin Foster emerged, already donning protective gear. My team's been studying similar bacterial adaptations, Foster said, setting up advanced diagnostic equipment. The molecular breakdown patterns are remarkably specific. Foster's instruments analyzed samples from processed Saurian technology, revealing consistent degradation signatures. The bacteria target structural elements common to all their tech. Earth's biosphere is naturally hostile to their systems. At Commander Kraz's crash site, Major General Stone directed teams setting mineral distribution parameters. Desert plants threaded through crystal matrices, creating dense barriers that processed contaminated materials while blocking unauthorized access. Maintain these mineral ratios, Stone instructed his botanical specialists. The crystalline integration provides perfect containment when properly balanced. Technical Sergeant Cooper's monitoring station lit up with new activity. These pulse patterns match Earth's magnetic field, he reported, adjusting sensor arrays. The crystal network's generating stabilizing frequencies. Earth-based electronics functioned normally within the pulse zones, while remaining Saurian technology deteriorated at accelerated rates. Cooper tracked the conversion process through expanding rings of stability. Private tours observed desert wildlife from his observation post, documenting behavioral patterns. Kangaroo rats and kit foxes avoid active Saurian tech zones but readily inhabit processed areas, he reported to Richardson. They're better at detecting contamination than our instruments. Dr. Young monitored Gia's latest test results as Foster collected bacterial samples. Her organic systems have achieved full adaptation, Young noted. The bacterial relationship has completely replaced cybernetic functions. Foster carefully preserved specimens for CDC analysis. These samples could revolutionize our understanding of biological countermeasures. Ethan moved through a crystal corridor, his stun rod's neural interface providing constant feedback. The weapon pulsed in harmony with surrounding formations, creating a synchronized network that responded to both conscious commands and environmental shifts. The integration's complete, Reynolds confirmed, scanning the stun rod's energy signature. It's functioning as a control node for the entire containment system. Captain Wells supervised the removal of processed alien materials, his team following strict quarantine protocols. Only completely inert samples cleared for transport, he reminded the recovery specialists. Partial conversion materials remain in containment. Major Hawks coordinated with Hawthorne's forces, establishing overlapping security zones. Military assets integrated with natural barriers, creating a sophisticated containment perimeter that protected both the crash site and debris field. Northern sector secured, Hawks reported. Crystal formations are self-stabilizing along the designated boundaries. The crystal network continued its geometric expansion through the desert floor bacterial processing, advancing steadily through abandoned Saurian technology. Above ground, multiple agency representatives conferred over jurisdiction and study rights, while the containment system quietly achieved equilibrium below. Cooper's instruments tracked the pulse patterns radiating from the crystal matrices. Each wave matched Earth's natural frequencies, creating expanding zones where terrestrial life and technology functioned normally, while alien systems underwent controlled degradation. The networks achieved independence, Reynolds noted, watching self-sustaining reaction chains spread through his scanning displays. It's processing contamination without external input now. Reynolds' eyes widened as new data flashed across his scanning displays. Energy spike detected in Sector 7, he announced, adjusting calibration settings. The crystal network is showing signs of structural instability. Colonel Drake rushed to examine the readings. The geometric patterns that had provided stable containment now pulsed with dangerous intensity. The growth rates exceeding our projections. These formations can't safely channel the energy from degrading Saurian tech. A Navy helicopter touched down at the command center, rotors kicking up clouds of crystalline dust. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Bennett strode out, carrying specialized sonar equipment designed for deep-sea pressure analysis. "Your signal reached Norfolk just in time," Bennett said, connecting power cables to his instruments. These formations share remarkable similarities with deep ocean crystal caves we've studied. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed an intricate web of stress patterns throughout the crystal network. There are pressure points forming here, here, and here, he indicated on the display. If these destabilize, we're looking at catastrophic energy release. At the CDC mobile lab, Foster's microscope feed showed an unexpected development. The bacterial cell walls are crystallizing, he reported, adjusting the magnification. They're adapting to permanently maintain their ability to process alien materials. Sir, private tours called through the command channel. We've got seed pods forming in the crystal-infused vegetation. They're packed with bacteriacrystal hybrids. Stone directed his botanical teams to establish collection points. Priority 1 is containing these seeds before they spread beyond our perimeter. Set up high-efficiency air filters and ground barriers. Cooper's monitoring equipment emitted a sharp warning tone. The crystal network's energy pulses synchronized with Ethan's stun rod at increasing frequencies. The neural interface is approaching critical levels, Cooper announced. We need to break this feedback loop before it destabilizes the entire system. Ethan felt the weapon vibrate in his hands as its power signature amplified. Reynolds rushed forward with calibration tools. Hold still, he instructed, accessing the stun rod's control circuits. We need to dampen these resonance patterns without losing the stabilizing effect. Captain Wells' recovery team encountered new complications at the collection site. The processed materials are exhibiting magnetic properties. Wells reported as two supposedly inert pieces of alien technology suddenly snapped together. Standard containment protocols aren't sufficient. Torres observed desert wildlife through his binoculars, noting precise patterns in their movement. Different species maintain exact distances from the crystal formations, he reported to Richardson. Coyotes stay 20 meters out, while kangaroo rats form a perimeter at 12 meters. A small drone buzzed overhead, its camera clearly visible. Hawthorne's security team tracked it to a civilian research vehicle hidden behind a rock formation. Perimeter breach in Sector 4, Hawks announced. Deploying electronic countermeasures. Dr. Young's medical monitors recorded new data from Gia's latest scan. Crystalline structures had begun forming within her adapted biology, mirroring the environmental formations. Her cellular changes could provide a template for biological containment systems, Young noted, but the process remains highly unstable. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed expanding stress patterns throughout the crystal network. We need to establish pressure release points, he advised, marking potential sites on the tactical display. Similar to how we handle underwater volcanic vents. Drake mobilized engineering teams to the designated locations. Begin installing pressure monitoring stations, he ordered. We need real-time data on structural integrity. Reynolds worked to recalibrate Ethan's stun rod as Cooper tracked the crystal network's energy patterns. The weapon's neural interface required precise adjustments to maintain its crucial stabilizing function without triggering a cascade failure. Foster collected samples of crystallized bacteria while Stone's teams gathered seed pods for secured storage. The evolved microorganisms represented both a potential defense mechanism and a containment risk that demanded careful management. Hawks deployed specialized jamming equipment around the perimeter, creating an electronic barrier against unauthorized surveillance. The security cordon expanded to encompass the growing influence of the crystal formations on the surrounding ecosystem. Bennett's sonar revealed new pressure buildups forming faster than engineering teams could establish release points. The race to stabilize the crystal network continued as multiple challenges demanded immediate attention throughout the containment zone. The ground trembled as Ethan's stun rod pulsed with increasing intensity. Warning indicators flashed across Reynolds' scanning equipment, highlighting dangerous power fluctuations throughout the crystal network. Energy output from the weapon is climbing exponentially, Reynolds announced, adjusting sensor arrays. The neural interface has developed far deeper integration than we anticipated. A helicopter touched down near the command center, kicking up crystalline dust. Dr. Samuel Whitman emerged, carrying advanced DARPA neural monitoring equipment. He moved swiftly to where Ethan stood, the stun rod vibrating in his grip. "Hold position," Whitman instructed, attaching sensor nodes to Ethan's temples. "Your neural patterns are synchronizing with the crystal formations." Whitman's monitoring screen displayed complex wave patterns. "The network's using your brain activity as a stabilizing template. Breaking contact now could trigger a systemic collapse." Bennett's sonar mapping revealed new developments in the crystal structures. "These formations are self-organizing," he reported, highlighting geometric patterns. The pressure channels mirror natural crystal growth, but they're conducting alien energy signatures. Cooper's equipment detected electromagnetic anomalies. "The crystal pulses are accelerating bacterial evolution," he said, transmitting data to Foster's station. "The microorganisms are developing crystalline structures." Foster activated additional containment protocols in the CDC lab. Through his microscope feed, bacterial cells displayed rigid geometric patterns. "The enhanced bacteria could spread beyond our control. We need to establish buffer zones." Stone directed his teams to address the expanding root systems of crystal-infused plants. Dense networks of minerals and organic matter created natural barriers that processed alien technology, but threatened to breach quarantine boundaries. "Set up growth control measures along sectors 5 through 8, Stone ordered. "Use mineral inhibitors to maintain barrier integrity without compromising containment properties." Captain Wells' recovery team discovered problems with processed materials scheduled for transport. "Previously neutralized components are reacting to network pulses," Wells reported. "Sample batch 7 just exhibited magnetic properties." Richardson approached Whitman with prototype schematics. "We can modify portable shielding units to maintain neural synchronization," he suggested. "It would allow limited mobility while preserving network stability." Whitman examined the designs. "Incorporate elements from the stun rod's interface. We need to match exact frequency patterns." Master Sergeant Harrison mapped safe routes through high-energy zones. "Grid reference Charlie 9 shows intense electromagnetic activity," he reported. "Standard equipment fails within 20 meters." Torres tracked energy amplification points from his observation post. "The stun rod's output creates predictable resonance patterns," he relayed to Harrison. "Wildlife behavior marks safe corridors between interference zones." Foster's analysis revealed new developments in the bacterial samples. "The microorganisms are synthesizing Earth-like mineral structures," he announced. "They're establishing permanent alien material processing capabilities." Engineers worked to install pressure release mechanisms at points identified by Bennett's sonar mapping. The crystal network continued its expansion, incorporating new mineral deposits while processing remnants of Saurian technology. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural readings as Richardson assembled the mobile support system. "Maintain steady contact with the interface," Whitman instructed. "Your brain activity provides crucial stability to the entire network." The stun rod pulsed in harmony with surrounding crystal formations, creating synchronized energy patterns that spread through the growing mineral matrix. Each pulse triggered corresponding reactions in the bacterial colonies and plant structures, revealing the interconnected nature of the containment system. Cooper's instruments tracked waves of electromagnetic activity radiating from amplification points. "Energy distribution follows geometric progression," he noted. "Each node in the crystal network processes and channels power from degrading alien tech." Foster established staged quarantine protocols for processed materials. "Nothing leaves containment until bacterial activity ceases completely," he directed. "Extended exposure requirements for all samples." The crystal formations continued their structured growth through the desert soil, creating an evolving system of natural containment barriers. Above ground, teams worked to balance the multiple challenges of network stabilization, bacterial containment, and environmental control. Stone's botanical specialists deployed mineral inhibitors along the perimeter, while Harrison's team maintained access routes through the electromagnetic interference zones. Throughout the containment area, the crystal network's influence reshaped the landscape into an integrated processing system for alien technology. Technology into an intricate processing network. Dr. Whitman's monitoring equipment emitted a piercing alarm as Ethan's neural readings spiked dangerously. Neural synchronization exceeding safety thresholds, Whitman announced, adjusting display settings. The feedback loop between his brain patterns and the crystal network is amplifying exponentially. The stun rod's surface temperature increased as energy coursed through its circuits. Reynolds activated emergency power dampeners, positioning the devices in a circular pattern around Ethan's position. Implementing containment field, Reynolds said, initializing the dampeners. Blue energy fields flickered between the devices, creating a controlled space that reduced the weapon's output without severing its crucial connection to the crystal network. A military transport landed nearby, delivering Dr. Maxwell Young and his specialized equipment from Lawrence Livermore. Young quickly assembled a complex array of sensors designed to detect subatomic interactions. "These readings are fascinating," Young said, examining his instrument's output. "The crystal structures are incorporating trace elements from processed Saurian technology. It's creating hybrid formations with enhanced containment properties." Stone's voice crackled through the hardened communication system. "We've got critical growth acceleration in the vegetation zone. Crystalline-fused plants are breaching standard barriers." His containment teams discovered that specific mineral compositions in the surrounding soil naturally inhibited crystal-enhanced growth. They began establishing concentric rings of treated soil, creating graduated buffer zones that allowed controlled processing while preventing unrestricted spread. Cooper's monitoring station detected new electromagnetic anomalies. "The crystal network's output matches Saurian communication frequencies," he reported. "Standard comm systems are failing across multiple sectors." Technical teams deployed hardened communication equipment originally designed for nuclear scenarios. The reinforced systems maintained clear channels despite increasing interference from the crystal network's expanding influence. At the material processing site, Captain Wells observed alarming changes in contained samples. "Previously neutralized components are showing signs of reactivation," he reported through the hardened comm system. "Energy pulses from the crystal network are triggering responses in process tech." Foster's analysis revealed the solution. "Complete neutralization requires exposure to multiple bacterial strains," he explained, examining cellular data. "We're implementing a staged decontamination protocol using engineered bacterial combinations." Torres and Richardson established their mobile command post using modified vehicles. Their specialized shielding allowed close observation of crystal formation patterns. "The growth follows natural geological features," Richardson noted, marking positions on their tactical display. "Fault lines and mineral deposits create predictable expansion vectors." Bennett's sonar equipment revealed extensive underground developments. "We've got natural containment chambers forming in these cavern systems," he reported. "The crystal structures are creating stable vessels for processing degraded alien tech." Engineering teams began reinforcing these underground formations, installing pressure monitors and structural support systems. The natural chambers provided ideal conditions for long-term storage of processed materials. In the medical sector, Dr. Young continued monitoring Gia's adaptation. Her cellular structure demonstrated increasing stability, maintaining function without cybernetic support while resisting adverse effects from crystal exposure. Harrison's team identified multiple locations where the crystal network's energy patterns created stable monitoring zones. They began installing hardened sensor arrays, establishing permanent observation points that could withstand prolonged electromagnetic exposure. Ethan remained at the center of the containment operation, his neural connection to the stun rod providing crucial stability to the expanding crystal network. Dr. Whitman's monitoring equipment tracked the complex interaction between human consciousness and alien technology, as engineering teams worked to maintain safe operating parameters. The dampening field continued modulating energy output, while Young's quantum sensors gathered data on the hybrid crystal formations. Throughout the containment zone, specialized teams addressed multiple challenges as the crystal network evolved into an increasingly sophisticated processing system. Dr. Young's quantum sensors emitted a shrill alert, drawing his attention to rapidly changing data streams. He adjusted the display settings, revealing alarming patterns in the bacterial analysis. Dr. Foster, we have critical mutations occurring in the processing strains, Young announced, transmitting the sensor data. The crystallization rate has increased by orders of magnitude. Foster's microscope feed showed bacterial cells producing geometric structures at unprecedented speeds. The evolved strains are exhibiting enhanced crystal formation capabilities. Standard containment measures won't hold. Colonel Drake stepped forward, activating a holographic terrain map. Implementation of Emergency Protocol Delta 7, he ordered. Teams Alpha through Charlie deploy mineral channels at these coordinates. He marked specific points where natural deposits could redirect crystal growth. A military transport touched down and Dr. Victor Reeves emerged with specialized equipment from Fort Detrick. Get these chemical barrier units in position, he instructed his team. Set up concentric rings at 5-diopter intervals. Reeves' containment system created visible boundaries of subtle blue mist. The chemical barriers allowed crystal formations to develop while blocking bacterial transmission. Through monitoring screens, they watched evolved bacteria halt at the chemical threshold. Dr. Whitman's neural monitoring equipment surged with activity. Ethan's synchronization levels are approaching critical thresholds, he reported, adjusting sensor nodes. The network integration is accelerating. The stun rod pulsed with increasing intensity. Richardson activated the first set of dampeners while engineering teams prepared backup units. Rotating dampener schedule is active, he confirmed. 2 minute intervals between shifts. Move him to Zone 7, Whitman directed. The natural crystal resonance there provides additional stability. Through the hardened communication system, Major General Stone's voice carried urgency. We've got crystalline integration in local plant species. Desert sage and creosote bush showing modified cellular structure. Stone's botanical team documented transformed vegetation. The modified plants processed alien energy signatures, creating living containment barriers. Their root systems channeled and neutralized saurian power signatures. Cooper here, the technical sergeant's voice crackled. Energy mapping shows distinct conductivity layers forming in the crystal network. I'm marking safe transit corridors based on field strength variations. Foster's analysis revealed unexpected developments in the bacterial processing. The evolved strains are breaking down saurian power cores without energy discharge, he reported. Implementing targeted exposure protocols for high-risk components. Tours marked new positions on the tactical display, located 3 major energy sinks in sectors 4, 7, and 9. The crystal formations are absorbing excess power from degraded tech. Establishing access routes now, Harrison responded. Team 2, deploy ground-penetrating radar. We need stable paths through the interference zones. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed complex crystalline architecture beneath the surface. The underground formations are developing self-reinforcing patterns, he observed. Natural load distribution is improving system stability. Captain Wells directed his recovery team to adjust quarantine procedures. All processed materials require 7 to 2-hour observation, he instructed. Dr. Reeves' detection protocols confirm complete neutralization before transport. Richardson worked at his mobile station, modifying neural interface components. Dr. Whitman, the hybrid support system is ready for initial testing. We've incorporated processed saurian elements into the stabilization matrix. The Crystal Network continued its expansion through the containment zone as teams addressed multiple evolving challenges. Dr. Reeves' chemical barriers created controlled processing areas, while Cooper's electromagnetic mapping revealed safe passages through the transformed landscape. Ethan maintained his position in Zone 7, surrounded by rotating dampener fields as the hybrid support system underwent final adjustments. Through instrument displays and monitoring feeds, the command center tracked the containment operations' expanding complexity. Alarms blared across multiple monitoring stations as geometric patterns in the Crystal Network shifted beyond predicted growth vectors. Dr. Reynolds rushed to his scanning equipment, hands moving rapidly across the controls. Junction points 7 through 12 showing critical energy buildup, Reynolds announced, highlighting red zones on the tactical display. Crystal formation rate exceeding containment parameters. Colonel Drake activated his command frequency. Engineering teams deploy to marked coordinates. Implement mineral-enriched soil barriers according to Emergency Protocol Sigma. He turned to Captain Wells. Status on the recovery operation. Negative, sir. We've got an active cache in Sector 4 releasing unknown radiation signatures. Electronic systems failing across. Wells' transmission cut off as local communications went dark. Master Sergeant Harrison's voice came through on backup channels. Initiating emergency evacuation of affected zones. Dr. Young, we need those equipment modifications now. A black helicopter touched down near the command center. Professor Anthony Marshall emerged, directing his team to unload large metallic containers. DARPA prototype containment units, Marshall explained, entering data into the control interface. Originally designed for fusion experiments, but the energy signature matching suggests viable application here. The units hummed to life, projecting focused fields that redirected Crystal Network pulses into stable channels. Marshall studied the readings with growing interest. These formations, he indicated crystalline structures on his display, they're self-organizing into semiconductor configurations. The network's developing its own processing architecture. In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster beckoned Dr. Young to his microscope. Look at this differentiation pattern. The colonies are specializing. The display showed distinct bacterial clusters, some breaking down saurian components, while others generated precise crystal structures that captured released energy. It's beyond adaptation, Foster said. They're forming a coordinated ecosystem specifically tailored to process alien materials. 3 civilian helicopters appeared on radar, approaching restricted airspace. Major Hawks activated aerial defense systems. Warning shots authorized, Hawks commanded. Cooper, prepare for potential energy disruption from rotor wash. The helicopter's downdraft created visible distortions in crystal growth patterns. Technical Sergeant Cooper's team deployed mobile stabilization units, working to contain sudden energy spikes. Lieutenant Commander Bennett studied new sonar data with growing concern. Underground chamber network expanding toward aquifer systems. The crystal veins are integrating with natural rock formations. Redirect growth using Marshall's containment fields, Drake ordered. Priority on groundwater protection. At the vegetation barrier, Major General Stone supervised expanded planting operations. Crystal-infused desert plants established root networks that processed contaminated soil while creating natural containment boundaries. Plant barrier holding at designated perimeter, Stone reported. Root system integration at optimal levels. Richardson and Torres worked to establish permanent monitoring stations in stable zones they'd identified throughout the containment area. Their hardened sensor arrays tracked network development through the electromagnetic interference. In Zone 7, Dr. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural readings with increasing concern. The stun rod pulsed in sync with crystal network frequencies as Ethan maintained his crucial connection to the system. Preparing shielded rest station, Whitman said. 20-minute rotation cycles to prevent neural strain. Dr. Young arrived with modified protective gear for the recovery teams. New shielding should withstand the radiation bursts. Harrison, your teams can resume evacuation operations. The Crystal Network continued its geometric expansion as Marshall's containment units channeled excess energy through stable pathways. Throughout the zone, specialized teams worked to address multiple evolving challenges while maintaining the delicate balance between containment and controlled growth. Dr. Reynolds adjusted his scanning equipment, tracking the rapid changes in crystal formation patterns. His eyes widened as new data streams revealed an unexpected development in the network's core structure. "Colonel Drake, you need to see this," Reynolds called, enlarging a holographic display. The formations around Ethan they're reorganizing into hexagonal chambers. The geometric display showed crystalline structures arranging themselves with mathematical precision. Each chamber processed energy from degrading Saurian technology, channeling it through an increasingly efficient network of pathways. A Navy transport helicopter descended near the command center. Commander Alexander Pierce emerged, directing his team to unload specialized equipment marked with Naval Research Laboratory insignias. "That's our prototype quantum detection array," Pierce explained, connecting power feeds. "We developed it for tracking submarine signatures. The crystal formations are incorporating trace minerals from surrounding deposits." Pierce's scanning array activated, projecting detailed atomic-level imagery. "Look at these lattice structures. The network's integrating iron and copper from natural deposits to enhance containment properties." In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster's microscope revealed colonies of microorganisms specifically attacking Saurian power cores. "The new strains breaking down energy sources without radiation release," he reported, adjusting specimen slides. "We can culture these for targeted processing." His team established sealed cultivation chambers, carefully controlling temperature and nutrient levels to promote bacterial growth. Through reinforced observation windows, they monitored the microorganisms consuming alien technology components. Major General Stone surveyed the expanding vegetation barrier, where crystalline-fused plants created living walls of containment. Root systems pulsed with captured energy, channeling it into underground formations. Implementation of growth control measures in sectors 3 through 6, Stone ordered, marking affected zones on his tablet. Standard trimming protocols aren't sufficient for these acceleration rates. Technical Sergeant Cooper's monitoring equipment detected regular energy pulses emanating from the crystal network. "These frequencies are disrupting all Saurian communication bands," he reported, analyzing the interference patterns. "Engineering team, deploy modified signal repeaters at marked coordinates." Captain Wells directed his recovery team through a section of partially processed alien technology. "These components are exhibiting molecular reconstruction," he observed, scanning transformed materials that resembled Earth minerals. Establishing quarantine protocols for detailed analysis. Lieutenant Commander Bennett studied new sonar data showing specialized crystal chambers forming deep underground. "These natural capacitors are storing and releasing processed energy," he reported. Engineering teams begin reinforcing access tunnels to primary storage zones. Master Sergeant Harrison coordinated with private tours to establish hardened monitoring stations around major energy sinks. Implementing forward rotation schedules, Harrison instructed his teams. No extended exposure to these electromagnetic fields. Dr. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural readings as the stun rod interfaced with surrounding crystals. The weapon pulsed in harmony with network frequencies, creating feedback loops that helped maintain containment stability. Vital signs stable, Whitman noted, adjusting sensor placement. The crystal resonance in this zone supports neural synchronization, but we'll need to keep him within the mapped safe areas. Richardson examined Professor Marshall's modified protective gear designs. The processed alien materials in these suits resist electromagnetic interference, he explained, inspecting sealed joints and reinforced panels. Teams can operate longer in affected zones, but exposure limits remain in effect. Through reinforced observation windows, they watched the crystal network continue its geometric evolution. Bacterial processing centers hummed with activity, while engineering teams maintained crucial monitoring systems throughout the containment zone. Dr. Young's sensors tracked energy flow through the newly formed hexagonal chambers. The efficiency of the natural containment structure provided hope for sustainable long-term solutions, though maintaining stability still required Ethan's presence within the network's effective range. Commander Pierce's quantum scanning array revealed increasingly complex mineral integration patterns as the crystal formations adapted to incorporate Earth elements. His team documented each new development, building a comprehensive database of the network's evolving properties. Commander Pierce's quantum scanning array emitted a high-pitched alert tone. The display shifted to show rapid crystalline restructuring around Ethan's position. Dr. Reynolds rushed to cross-reference the readings with his own equipment. Energy patterns centralizing, Reynolds announced, fingers flying across his console. The network's reorganizing into a geodesic structure. A perfect dome of interlocking crystal formations rose from the ground, expanding outward with mathematical precision. The structure's radius reached 1 mile within minutes, its surface reflecting sunlight in complex geometric patterns. All teams maintain position, Colonel Drake ordered. Monitor energy signatures for containment breaches. A black SUV convoy arrived at the command center. Dr. Marcus Thorne emerged, carrying a reinforced case marked with high-level security clearances. The Pentagon's been tracking similar formations, Thorne explained, connecting his database to the main system. Previous Saurian incursions triggered crystalline growth, but nothing achieved this level of stability. His classified files revealed grainy photos of partial crystal structures from undisclosed locations. Thorne's team deployed specialized sensors around the dome's perimeter, gathering real-time comparative data. The formations are integrating with local geology, Thorne pointed to subsurface scans. These aren't temporary constructs, they're becoming part of Earth's mineral structure. In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster's microscope revealed a startling development. Carbon formation detected in processed samples, he called to his team. The bacteria are producing microstructures that neutralize Saurian power sources. Through the observation window, researchers watched as alien power cells turned dull gray, their energy signatures fading to background levels. The bacterial colonies multiplied rapidly, converting active components into inert mineral deposits. Major General Stone's radio crackled with updates from the vegetation barrier. Root systems developing conductive properties, his field team reported. They're channeling energy directly into deeper geological layers. Crystal-infused plants pulsed with captured power, their roots forming living conduits that dispersed alien energy safely underground. Stone's monitoring equipment tracked the expanding biological network as it integrated with natural rock formations. Technical Sergeant Cooper adjusted his scanning equipment, tracking a new pattern in the crystal network's emissions. The pulse frequency matches Earth's electromagnetic field, he reported. The alien tech is adapting to natural terrestrial patterns. Captain Wells directed his recovery team through a field of processed materials. New crystal growths emerged from converted alien technology, forming miniature containment zones that automatically processed remaining active components. Establishing controlled growth sectors, Wells marked coordinates on his tactical display. These secondary formations are accelerating the conversion process. Lieutenant Commander Bennett's sonar mapping revealed crystalline veins spreading through bedrock layers, natural storage chambers forming at junction points. He indicated deep geological formations. The system's creating its own sustainable infrastructure. Dr. Young analyzed new data from Gia's medical scans. Microscopic crystals appeared in tissue samples, matching patterns from the containment zone. Her adaptation mechanism could provide a biological template for future containment systems, Young noted, documenting the cellular changes. The crystal dome continued its precise expansion as bacterial processing centers hummed with activity. Energy pulses from the network synchronized with Earth's natural frequencies, while plant-based conduits channeled excess power deep underground. Through reinforced observation windows, engineering teams tracked the integration of processed alien materials into terrestrial systems. Marshall's containment units maintained stability, while Cooper's sensors monitored the emerging patterns of a new, hybrid technology uniquely adapted to Earth's environment. Richardson checked readings from the hardened monitoring stations. Network crystallization reaching equilibrium in sectors 3 through 7. Energy distribution patterns stabilizing across contained zones. A series of sharp beeps from Dr. Reynolds' monitoring station drew immediate attention. His display showed molecular-level changes occurring throughout the crystalline structure. These bonds they're self-repairing, Reynolds said, enhancing the microscopic view. The entire network is stabilizing at the atomic level. Colonel Drake moved to examine the readings. Before he could respond, the sound of helicopter rotors filled the air. A black military helicopter touched down, and General Marcus Blackwood stepped out, carrying a thick folder marked with NORAD insignias. "The crystal signature matches our M-shielding prototypes," Blackwood announced, spreading satellite imagery across the command center table. "My team detected these patterns during classified tests at Cheyenne Mountain." Technical crews unloaded ground-penetrating radar equipment from the helicopter. The displays revealed distinct crystalline layers forming deep beneath the surface, mimicking natural geological strata. In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster adjusted his microscope magnification. "The crystal-producing strain is interacting with native soil bacteria," he reported. "Look at this symbiosis." The microscope feed showed two distinct bacterial colonies merging, creating stable molecular compounds that systematically neutralized alien technology. Foster's team immediately began preparing enhanced soil treatment protocols for the containment zone perimeter. At the vegetation barrier, Major General Stone examined water quality readings from new monitoring wells. Crystalline-fused plants had developed specialized root structures that filtered groundwater with remarkable efficiency. Contamination levels dropping in all aquifer samples, Stone noted, reviewing the data. "The root system is extracting alien particles while preserving natural mineral content." Technical Sergeant Cooper's electromagnetic sensors mapped a network of stable energy corridors throughout the crystal formation. "These pathways maintain normal M levels," he explained, marking safe routes on the tactical display. "We can establish permanent access routes through these channels." Dr. Whitman's medical monitors registered a significant change in Ethan's neural patterns. The stun-rod interface had achieved equilibrium, creating self-sustaining feedback loops that reduced strain on his nervous system. "We can set up designated rest stations along the stable corridors," Whitman said. The network maintains containment integrity even during brief disconnections. Underground, Lieutenant Commander Bennett directed sonar mapping of newly formed crystal chambers. The natural cavities processed and stored energy from degrading alien technology with increasing efficiency. These formations are permanent, Bennett reported, examining the crystalline walls. They're integrating with the surrounding bedrock structure. Dr. Young analyzed samples of processed alien materials under an electron microscope. The transformed components matched the exact atomic structure of natural Earth minerals. The conversion is complete at the molecular level, Young said. These aren't just similar to Earth materials, they're identical. Major Hawks supervised the installation of new security systems that incorporated processed alien technology. Modified sensors extended the effective range of standard military equipment while maintaining full compatibility with Earth-based communications. The Crystal Dome continued its precise geometric expansion as multiple containment systems achieved stability. Dr. Reynolds monitors tracked the self-repairing molecular bonds while bacterial processing centers operated at peak efficiency. Through the reinforced observation windows, engineering teams watched the network evolve into a permanent geological feature that seamlessly merged advanced alien technology with Earth's natural systems. Dr. Reynolds' monitoring station emitted another series of alerts. The display showed rapid geometric restructuring emanating from Ethan's position in precise mathematical patterns. Energy signature shifting, Reynolds announced, adjusting his instruments. The crystalline matrix is drawing in surrounding minerals at an unprecedented rate. A black military transport rolled up to the command center. Dr. Harold Winters emerged, directing his team to unload specialized X-ray diffraction equipment. The crystallography expert from Aberdeen Proving Ground immediately began setting up his analysis station. "These formations are extraordinary," Winters said, examining the initial diffraction patterns. The crystal structure maintains alien processing capabilities while matching exact molecular patterns of natural Earth minerals. In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster's microscope feed displayed remarkable changes. "New enzyme production detected," he called out, focusing on a cluster of evolved bacterial colonies. "They're breaking down saurian power cores without energy discharge." The observation window showed dull gray fragments of alien technology crumbling into crystalline dust as specialized bacteria consumed the materials. Foster's team rushed to collect samples, documenting the accelerated conversion process. Major General Stone's radio crackled with updates from the vegetation barrier. "Sir, the crystal-infused plants are producing modified seeds," his field technician reported. "High concentrations of mineral-processing bacteria present in seed casings." Stone examined a sample under portable magnification. "Implement contamination protocols," he ordered. "Set up catch nets and collection systems. We can't risk uncontrolled dispersal." Technical Sergeant Cooper traced new energy patterns on his monitoring equipment. "Stable corridors forming throughout the network," he reported, marking safe zones on the tactical display. "Standard equipment functions normally within these channels." Engineering teams began installing permanent route markers and reinforced access points along the stable pathways. Their equipment registered steady power levels, unaffected by the surrounding crystal emissions. Captain Wells directed his recovery team through a field of processed materials. "These readings can't be right," he said, rechecking his handheld scanner. "The converted alien tech is registering as pure Earth minerals." He collected samples of crystalline structures that had formed from processed saurian technology. Laboratory analysis confirmed complete transformation. No trace of alien origin remained in the converted materials. Underground, Lieutenant Commander Bennett's sonar mapping revealed extensive chamber networks. Natural containment systems forming. He indicated chambers glowing with stored energy on the display. The crystal formations are creating their own storage architecture. Dr. Young studied new data from Gia's latest tests. Her cellular structure shows enhanced mineral processing abilities, she noted, examining tissue samples. The adaptation mirrors the crystal network's conversion properties. Dr. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural patterns as the stun rod interface stabilized. The power flow achieved equilibrium, creating self-regulating feedback loops that reduced strain on his system. Setting up control points at 20-minute intervals, Whitman directed his medical team. The network maintained stability even with periodic disconnection. Winter's X-ray analysis revealed increasingly complex molecular integration as the crystal dome expanded. Native minerals merged seamlessly with processed alien materials, forming hybrid structures that channeled and contained energy with remarkable efficiency. The geometric patterns follow Earth's natural crystalline formations, Winters explained, tracking atomic bonds across the growing network. It's not just similar, it's becoming a legitimate part of local geology. Fosters enhanced bacterial colonies spread through designated processing zones, systematically breaking down remaining alien technology. The converted materials formed stable crystal structures that integrated perfectly with existing containment systems. Through reinforced observation ports, engineering teams watched this evolution of hybrid Earth technology continue its precise expansion. New chambers formed underground as bacterial processing centers hummed with activity, creating permanent solutions for containing and converting alien materials within Earth's natural systems. Dr. Reynolds adjusted his scanning equipment as new data streams populated his monitors. The crystalline structures surrounding Ethan pulsed with geometric precision, each new formation perfectly aligned with the bedrock's natural mineral planes. "Colonel Drake," Reynolds called out, "these readings indicate full geological integration. The crystal matrices are forming permanent bonds with the surrounding mineral deposits." Drake strode to the monitoring station, studying the three-dimensional rendering. "Set up additional monitoring points at these junctions," he directed his engineering team, marking key locations on the tactical display. The arrival of a dust-covered USGS vehicle drew attention to the command center's entrance. Dr. Sarah Jenkins emerged, her team already unloading specialized mineral analysis equipment. "The crystal formations are incorporating rare earth elements from the desert soil," Jenkins announced, calibrating her instruments. "Look at these spectral signatures." Her display showed complex molecular structures forming as local minerals merged with the processed alien materials. In the bacterial research station, Dr. Foster's excitement was palpable. "We've isolated a new bacterial strain," he reported, adjusting his microscope. The screen displayed crystalline structures forming in real time, their atomic pattern matching natural quartz perfectly. "These bacteria aren't just converting the alien tech," Foster explained. "They're creating Earth-native minerals while preserving the energy-containing properties." His team immediately began preparing cultivation chambers, carefully controlling temperature and humidity levels to optimize bacterial growth. Technical Sergeant Cooper's electromagnetic sensors picked up new energy signatures extending beyond the primary containment dome. "Natural conduits forming in sectors 8 through 12, he reported, tracking the patterns. "They're neutralizing active saurian tech without artificial intervention." The vegetation barrier had transformed the landscape. Major General Stone examined the modified root systems through ground-penetrating radar. Crystal-infused plants tapped deep into mineral deposits, creating living filtration networks that extended for hundreds of meters. "Initialize controlled burn sequence in Section 4, Stone ordered. "We need to maintain strict population control of the modified vegetation." Captain Wells knelt beside a newly formed crystal cluster, his handheld scanner revealing complex energy storage capabilities. "These structures are acting as natural capacitors," he reported. The transformed alien materials pulsed with stored power, releasing it in controlled bursts that maintained network stability. Underground, Lieutenant Commander Bennett's sonar mapping revealed an expanding network of crystalline chambers. "These cavities are self-sealing," he noted, examining the formation process, "perfect for long-term storage of processed materials." Engineering crews began reinforcing access tunnels to these natural storage vaults, installing support structures that worked in harmony with the crystal formations. Dr. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural patterns as the stun rod interface evolved. The weapon's energy signature shifted, establishing self-regulating cycles that reduced the burden on Ethan's nervous system. "The interface is achieving autonomy," Whitman reported. "You should have greater mobility now, Ethan. The network will maintain stability even with reduced neural input." Major Hawks directed the installation of hybrid security barriers, watching as processed alien materials merged with standard military fencing. The resulting structures generated subtle energy fields that naturally deflected unauthorized approach, while allowing controlled access through designated points. Dr. Reynolds' instruments detected new crystalline growth patterns spreading through the bedrock. The network continued its precise expansion, each new formation automatically aligning with Earth's geological structures to create an increasingly stable containment system. Jenkins' mineral analysis team mapped the integration of rare earth elements throughout the crystal matrix. Their equipment revealed perfect molecular bonds forming between processed alien materials and natural desert minerals, creating hybrid structures that channeled and contained energy with unprecedented efficiency. Foster's bacterial cultivation chambers hummed with activity as the new quartz-producing strain multiplied under carefully controlled conditions. Each generation of bacteria demonstrated improved conversion capabilities, systematically transforming alien technology into Earth-compatible crystalline structures. Through reinforced observation windows, engineering teams tracked the emergence of new energy conduits. Cooper's sensors mapped an expanding network of stable channels that processed and neutralized alien technology with increasing range and effectiveness. Cooper's monitoring station emitted a series of rapid alerts, drawing immediate attention from Dr. Reynolds. The displays showed Ethan's neural patterns synchronizing with the crystal network's core frequency in perfect mathematical harmony. "These resonance patterns are extraordinary," Reynolds said, adjusting his instruments to capture the phenomenon. "The crystalline structures are organizing themselves according to Ethan's brainwave frequencies." A sleek government vehicle pulled up to the command center. Dr. Lawrence Blackburn emerged, his Sandia Labs team already unloading state-of-the-art atomic force microscopy equipment. "The molecular alignment is unprecedented," Blackburn announced, examining the first microscopy scans. His displays showed crystal lattices arranging themselves into precise geometric patterns that radiated outward from Ethan's position. These formations match Earth's most stable mineral structures while maintaining their exotic processing capabilities. The bacterial research station buzzed with activity as Dr. Foster isolated a new strain under his electron microscope. "Diamond-like encapsulation structures forming," he reported, focusing on the crystalline shells surrounding processed alien energy signatures. The microscope feed showed bacteria systematically converting saurian technology into inert minerals. Through the reinforced windows, the modified vegetation had transformed the landscape into a living support system. Thick crystal-infused roots penetrated deep underground, creating natural pillars that reinforced the expanding chamber network. "Structural integrity at maximum," Stone's field engineer reported, examining a reinforced tunnel entrance. The root system is actually strengthening the underground formations. Cooper traced new energy signatures spreading through the containment zone, self-regulating channels establishing throughout sectors 5 through 9, he said, marking the paths on his tactical display. His sensors showed power from degrading alien tech being automatically redirected and processed. Near a cluster of processed materials, Captain Wells collected samples of transformed crystals. Perfect match with Earth minerals, he confirmed, examining the structures. Complete integration with native geological formations. The sonar mapping station displayed Lieutenant Commander Bennett's latest scans. These chamber walls are exhibiting autonomous repair capabilities, he noted, pointing to a section that had redistributed stress loads after a minor tremor. The crystal matrix maintains structural stability without external reinforcement. Dr. Young's analysis revealed another breakthrough in the bacterial evolution. Complete elemental conversion achieved, she announced, reviewing her latest data. The microorganisms are breaking down alien materials into basic Earth elements while preserving their energy-processing properties. Major Hawks supervised the installation of hybrid security barriers along the containment zone perimeter. The processed materials merged seamlessly with standard military fencing, creating an adaptive defensive network that automatically neutralized active alien technology. Barrier response optimal, Hawks confirmed, testing the system with an alien power core fragment. The hybrid fence absorbed and contained the energy signature without disruption. Blackburn's atomic force microscopy revealed increasingly sophisticated crystal organization. The network is achieving quantum-level stability, he explained, examining three-dimensional atomic maps. These structures are becoming permanent geological features. Foster's enhanced bacterial colonies spread methodically through designated zones, transforming alien materials into stable Earth minerals. The converted crystals pulsed with contained energy, each new formation perfectly aligned with the surrounding geology. Engineering teams installed permanent monitoring stations along the self-regulating energy conduits. Their instruments tracked power flows being automatically processed and redistributed throughout the crystal network's expanding architecture. Dr. Reynolds adjusted his scanning equipment as new data streams populated his displays. The crystalline matrices surrounding Ethan continued their precise geometric expansion, each new formation integrating perfectly with Earth's natural mineral structures while maintaining their advanced containment properties. Reynolds' monitoring equipment emitted a series of rapid alerts. The displays showed quantum-level changes occurring within the crystal matrices as they synchronized with Ethan's neural patterns. The network's achieving perfect resonance, Reynolds said, adjusting his instruments. These formations aren't just containing the alien energy, they're transforming it at the atomic level. The command center door burst open as Admiral James Morrison strode in, followed by a team carrying specialized quantum scanning equipment. Dr. Reynolds, maintain those readings. What you're seeing matches classified data from 1945. Morrison's team quickly deployed their gear, holographic displays materializing to show complex quantum measurements. During World War II, we encountered similar crystal bacterial hybrid systems while studying captured Saurian tech, but nothing approached this level of stability. In the bacterial research station, Foster's excitement drew attention. "Admiral, look at this." He adjusted his electron microscope, revealing perfectly formed diamond crystal structures. This new bacterial strain isn't just converting the alien materials, it's reconstructing them into flawless diamond matrices that retain all energy processing capabilities. Technical Sergeant Cooper's monitoring station lit up with new energy signatures. "Sir, detecting crystalline computational structures forming in the network core." His displays showed intricate patterns of energy flow self-regulating throughout the containment zone. They're acting as organic processors, automatically balancing power distribution. The engineering team began integrating their systems with these natural control centers. Captain Wells connected a modified interface panel, watching as data streams synchronized with the crystal network's rhythms. Outside, the modified vegetation had developed remarkable new properties. Through reinforced windows, Stone observed crystalline structures in the plant life capturing and channeling sunlight. The barrier plants are creating their own power grid, he reported, examining energy readings. They're reducing our dependence on processed alien power sources. His containment team deployed automated trimming systems, precisely managing the growth of these enhanced plants while preserving their energy-gathering capabilities. Wells held up a processed alien component, its surface transformed into perfect semiconductor crystals. These match Earth's silicon properties exactly, he said, connecting it to a testing apparatus. We can integrate these directly into our monitoring systems. Underground, Bennett's sonar mapping revealed new developments in the crystal chamber network. The cavities are self-organizing, he reported, watching three-dimensional displays show new storage vaults forming. They're automatically creating space for incoming processed materials while maintaining structural integrity. Dr. Young's analysis station buzzed with activity as she examined Gia's latest medical data. Her cellular structure shows perfect integration with both bacterial and crystalline elements, Young explained, displaying microscopic images of Gia's adapted biology. This could revolutionize our protective equipment design. Morrison studied the quantum scanning results, his expression intense. The stability levels are unprecedented. These formations aren't just containing the alien tech, they're permanently converting it into Earth-compatible forms while preserving its advanced properties. The bacterial cultivation chambers hummed as Foster's team expanded their diamond-producing strain. Each new generation of bacteria showed improved conversion rates, systematically transforming alien materials into stable crystal structures. Cooper's monitoring equipment tracked the spread of crystalline processors throughout the network. The organic computers are establishing hierarchical control patterns, he reported, marking new formation points on his tactical display. They're optimizing energy flow across all containment sectors. Through the observation windows, the crystalline-fused vegetation continued its precise expansion, solar-gathering structures aligning with mathematical precision. Stone's containment team adjusted growth control measures, maintaining optimal coverage while preventing unchecked spread. Wells integrated more converted semiconductors into the monitoring system, watching as hybrid displays came online with enhanced capabilities. The merged technologies created interfaces that processed data with unprecedented clarity and speed. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed deeper levels of organization in the underground network. New storage chambers formed in perfect geometric patterns, automatically adjusting their structure to maintain optimal stability under the increasing load of processed materials. Young's team began prototyping new protective gear based on Gia's adapted biology, incorporating crystal bacterial elements into the design. Initial tests showed promising results for shielding personnel from high-energy areas while maintaining mobility. The quantum scanning equipment continued gathering data as the crystal network evolved, each new formation adding to its processing capability and structural integrity. Morrison's team tracked these developments with growing interest, their classified historical data providing crucial context for the system's unprecedented achievements. Morrison's quantum scanning team gathered around their displays as new data streams revealed exponential growth in the crystal network's complexity. The formations surrounding Ethan had begun extending geometric patterns deep into the desert bedrock, creating interlocking matrices that pulsed with controlled energy. These structures are achieving perfect geological integration, Reynolds said, adjusting his monitoring equipment to track the spreading formations. The screens displayed cross-sections of crystalline latticework merging with natural mineral deposits hundreds of feet below the surface. The command center's doors slid open as Colonel Thomas Hawthorne entered, his Area 51 credentials displayed prominently on his tactical vest. Behind him, a team wheeled in specialized boring equipment marked with classified military designations. Our subterranean scans detected some interesting developments, Hawthorne said, connecting his equipment to the main display. Three-dimensional holograms materialized, showing a network of reinforced tunnels threading through the containment zone. The crystal growths are creating natural access routes with remarkable structural properties. In the bacterial research station, Foster's excitement drew his team's attention. Through his electron microscope, pure carbon crystals formed perfect geometric patterns as his enhanced bacteria processed a fragment of alien technology. Complete molecular conversion achieved, Foster announced, examining the diamond-like structures. These new formations are permanently neutralizing the Saurian power signatures while maintaining perfect crystalline alignment. Stone directed his vegetation management team from a reinforced observation post, tracking the spread of crystal-infused plants through thermal imaging. The enhanced root systems glowed with channeled energy, creating biological power conduits that connected to deeper crystal formations. The plants are establishing a living distribution network, Stone reported, marking new growth patterns on his tactical display. Native desert vegetation had begun flourishing around the processed areas, drawing sustenance from the converted energy flows. Cooper's monitoring station detected new electromagnetic signatures throughout the containment zone. His screens showed crystalline processors forming at key junction points, automatically regulating power distribution between different sectors. The network is developing organic computational nodes, Cooper said, watching as energy patterns adjusted in real time. Engineers worked quickly to integrate their systems with these natural control centers, creating hybrid interfaces that enhanced monitoring capabilities. Wells led his recovery team through a newly formed storage chamber, examining structures where processed alien materials merged seamlessly with Earth minerals. The hybrid formations pulsed with contained energy while maintaining perfect stability. These converted components are providing permanent containment solutions, Wells said, scanning a wall section with specialized equipment. No signs of degradation or energy leakage. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed the expanding underground network in precise detail. The crystal chambers demonstrated perfect load distribution, automatically reinforcing any areas under stress. The formations are self-stabilizing, Bennett reported, watching as a minor tremor triggered automatic structural adjustments. These containment vessels will maintain integrity indefinitely. At his monitoring station, Dr. Whitman observed Ethan's neural patterns as they synchronized with the modified stun rod. The weapon's crystal interface achieved perfect resonance with both human and network systems, reducing the physical strain on Ethan's nervous system while maintaining essential control functions. Dr. Young continued her analysis of Gia's adapted physiology, examining cellular samples that showed complete integration with both bacterial and crystalline elements. Her team began constructing prototype protective suits based on these findings, incorporating hybrid materials that provided enhanced radiation shielding while preserving mobility. The cellular adaptation is remarkable, Young said, displaying microscopic images of Gia's modified tissue structure. This will revolutionize our containment protocols. The quantum scanning equipment registered increasing complexity in the crystal network's organization. Each new formation added processing capability while maintaining perfect structural alignment with surrounding geological features. Morrison's team recorded these developments with growing interest, as their classified historical data provided crucial context for the system's unprecedented evolution. Foster's bacterial processing chambers hummed with activity as new strains systematically converted alien materials into stable crystal matrices. The transformed components interfaced naturally with Earth's mineral deposits, creating an expanding network of permanent containment structures that stretched throughout the underground complex. As Foster's team monitored the bacterial processing chambers, Dr. Reynolds rushed into the control room, his quantum sensors displaying unprecedented readings. "The crystal formations are synchronizing with Earth's electromagnetic field," he announced, adjusting the display resolution. The screens showed perfect geometric patterns emerging as the network surrounding Ethan achieved harmonic resonance with the planet's natural energy patterns. A sleek NSA transport vehicle arrived at the facility's entrance. Dr. Marcus Steele emerged, carrying specialized scanning equipment that resembled crystalline structures themselves. "The quantum crystallography readings are extraordinary," he said, connecting his prototype scanner to the main systems. Three-dimensional projections materialized, revealing intricate self-replicating patterns throughout the containment zone. "The network is neutralizing alien signatures faster than we projected," Steele explained, tracking energy conversion rates across multiple displays. His fingers moved rapidly across the control interface as he analyzed the data streams. "These formations are achieving perpetual stability without external power input." In the bacterial research station, Foster's monitoring equipment registered peak efficiency metrics. The enhanced bacterial strains had evolved beyond initial specifications, achieving total conversion of the remaining Saurian technology. "Conversion rate at 100%, he announced, examining the flawless crystal structures forming in the processing chambers. Cooper's electromagnetic monitoring station lit up with new data as the crystal barrier extended deeper into the bedrock. "Barrier depth now exceeding 3 miles, he reported, watching as the formations merged seamlessly with natural rock strata. "The geological integration is creating a self-reinforcing containment structure." Stone directed his vegetation management teams from the observation post, tracking the modified plants as they established precise growth boundaries. Native desert flora flourished alongside the crystal-infused specimens, creating natural barriers that contained the enhanced vegetation. His thermal imaging displays showed perfect energy distribution through the living network. "The ecosystem is self-regulating," Stone noted, marking stable zones on his tactical map. The enhanced plant life maintained optimal coverage while preventing expansion beyond designated sectors. Wells led his final recovery operation, processing the last pieces of alien technology through the bacterial conversion system. The transformed components merged with surrounding mineral deposits, their crystalline structures pulsing with contained energy. His scanning equipment confirmed complete elimination of alien signatures. Bennett's sonar mapping revealed the full extent of the underground storage network. "Chamber configuration has reached optimal stability," he reported, examining the perfectly formed vault system. The crystalline cavities demonstrated flawless load distribution, automatically adjusting to maintain structural integrity. At her research station, Dr. Young analyzed the latest data from Gia's physiological scans. The insights gained from studying her unique adaptations led to breakthrough developments in containment zone safety protocols. Her team began implementing enhanced protection measures based on the hybrid cellular structures observed in Gia's tissue samples. "Dr. Whitman monitored Ethan's neural patterns as the crystal network achieved perfect synchronization. The modified stun rod interface established stable energy circulation patterns, reducing the physical demands of network control to minimal levels. Ethan's vital signs showed marked improvement as the system reached equilibrium. Neural load has decreased by 80%, Whitman reported, tracking the normalized energy signatures. The interface is maintaining essential functions while significantly reducing strain. Steele's quantum crystallography equipment detected increasing complexity in the network's organizational patterns. The crystal matrices are exhibiting autonomous optimization, he observed, studying the evolving formations. They're creating self-sustaining containment protocols that require minimal oversight. Foster's bacterial processing chambers continued their steady operation as the final conversion phases progressed. The enhanced microorganisms established permanent processing zones throughout the containment area, creating living barriers against potential reactivation of alien technology. Technical readouts from Cooper's monitoring station confirmed the formation of a complete defensive barrier. The crystalline structure maintained perfect energy processing capabilities while demonstrating seamless integration with the desert's geological features. His displays showed steady power distribution throughout the reinforced containment zone. Bennett's sonar mapping team deployed additional sensors to track the expanding underground network. The crystal chambers exhibited perfect structural stability, automatically reinforcing any areas experiencing stress from the surrounding rock formations. New storage vaults formed in precise geometric patterns, creating a vast underground containment system. Grid, above ground, Dr. Reynolds burst into the monitoring station, his quantum sensors displaying unprecedented readings that caught everyone's attention. The crystal network is achieving perfect resonance, he announced, adjusting the holographic display. The three-dimensional image showed waves of energy pulsing through the containment zone as dawn broke over the desert landscape. Brilliant patterns of blue light rippled across the crystalline structures, synchronized with Earth's natural electromagnetic field. Ethan stood at the center of the network's core chamber, the modified stun rod responding to his neural patterns with increasing precision. The weapon's crystal interface hummed softly as energy flowed seamlessly between his nervous system and the surrounding structures. Neural synchronization at optimal levels, Dr. Whitman reported from his station, monitoring Ethan's vital signs. The interface is stabilizing permanently. In the bacterial processing station, Foster watched as the final pieces of saurian technology dissolved into pure crystalline matrices. His enhanced bacterial strains worked with machine-like efficiency, converting the alien materials into stable Earth-compatible structures. Final conversion cycle complete, Foster said, examining the flawless crystal formations. No trace signatures remaining. Gia entered the core chamber, her modified cellular structure resonating with the crystal network. The chamber's blue luminescence intensified as she approached Ethan, their unique biological adaptations creating synchronized energy patterns throughout the system. Their combined presence is strengthening the entire containment structure, Dr. Young noted, tracking the stabilization effects on her monitors. Cooper's electromagnetic sensors recorded the network's final integration phase. The containment dome's energy signature merged with the desert's natural geological patterns, becoming indistinguishable from the surrounding landscape while maintaining its protective properties. Complete geological integration achieved, Cooper announced. The barrier is self-sustaining. Stone directed his teams as they monitored the crystal-infused vegetation, establishing permanent root networks. Native desert plants spread through the outer perimeter, merging with the enhanced specimens to create a living barrier system. Vegetation barrier is self-regulating, Stone confirmed, marking the final growth patterns on his tactical display. Ethan and Gia walked through a newly formed crystal chamber, their footsteps echoing off perfectly formed walls. The stun rod pulsed softly at Ethan's side, its neural interface allowing him to sense every aspect of the surrounding network. "The containment zone has achieved full stability," Dr. Reynolds said, conducting a final sweep with his quantum sensors. "All systems are operating at peak efficiency." Military personnel began dismantling temporary structures around the perimeter, leaving only essential monitoring equipment integrated into the natural formations. The transformed desert settled into its new configuration, as the sunset painted the crystal structures in brilliant hues. Technical readouts from multiple stations confirmed the completion of each containment system, the bacterial processors, crystal networks, and modified vegetation all functioning in perfect harmony. The desert that had once housed dangerous alien technology had become Earth's newest defense system, its secrets safely contained within the crystalline structures that now appeared as natural as the surrounding landscape. Ethan and Gia stood at the edge of their transformed domain, watching as the last rays of sunlight reflected off the crystal formations. The stun rod's neural connection allowed Ethan to feel the steady pulse of energy flowing through the containment zone, while Gia's adapted biology resonated with the hybrid ecosystem they now called home. "Final perimeter security protocols engaging," Cooper reported as military teams activated the integrated defense systems. The containment zone's true nature disappeared beneath its natural facade, becoming nothing more than another restricted section of desert to outside observers. Dr. Reynolds' monitoring equipment tracked the steady energy signatures of the crystal network as it maintained perfect synchronization with Earth's electromagnetic field. Each component of the containment system performed its function automatically, creating a self-sustaining cycle that would continue indefinitely. The modified stun rod glowed softly as Ethan used its interface to scan the surrounding structures. His thoughts translated instantly into precise adjustments throughout the network, maintaining optimal energy distribution with minimal conscious effort. Beside him, Gia's presence created additional stability, their unique adaptations working in concert to preserve the containment zone's integrity. Technical readouts continued streaming across monitoring stations as the system settled into its permanent configuration. The crystal chambers pulsed with contained energy, their perfect geometric patterns maintaining flawless structural stability while processing any residual alien signatures. Native desert life gradually reclaimed the outer edges of the containment zone, establishing a natural boundary that concealed its true purpose.